Week 3 is upon us, and you are looking live at the FFPC Insider Access show here on the Better Sports Network. Hi, hello, and welcome. My name is Eric Balkman. You can connect with me on the X at Eric Balkman. So glad to have you aboard tonight as we have a jam-packed show for you leading into tonight's Thursday night football with the Miami Dolphins visiting the Buffalo Bills. This guy is visiting this show. Again, I say visiting because he's been here before. He is the co-founder of OptimusFantasy.com, at Optimus Fantasy on the X. You know him as Tank, maybe. You also know him as Nate Polvogt. Nate, at Nate Polvogt on the X as well. Nate, good evening and welcome. Thanks for hopping aboard tonight.
Eric, thanks for having me, man. It's a blast to be here. I love doing these shows. I was wondering when you're going to reach back out and ask me to come on. It's nice to share the camera with someone with a bigger beard than mine because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, last time you had the beard last time you were on, but it was a lot more muted or more reserved.
Yes.
Mine is just like all over the place, homeless and unkempt today. So it's terrible that people put up with it. But yeah,
I get it. I get it, man. We moved and I gave up. It's like, I don't have time to do this anymore. It's just going to go crazy. It's fine.
Where are you living now?
We're still in Denver. We just moved.
Okay.
We bought a new house in January. We were in our old house for 14 years. So you can imagine the hell that was. But yeah, I keep telling myself it was worth it.
It sounds like it was. And hopefully tonight on the show, it will be well worth watching for everybody out there tuning in. Coming up on the show this evening, we will go around the NFL, including some breaking news out of Green Bay that will lead things off with tonight. We'll also preview the Thursday night football game. We're going to talk about what Nate thinks about the Dolphins offense and the Dolphins team in general here. We'll talk about Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill as how strong of plays they are tonight against Buffalo. We're going to assess what happened to Josh Allen in week 2 and see what his prospects are against Miami in week 3. What could be a blowout, we'll see. And then we'll talk about the mystery of Dalton Kincaid in that segment as well, which is going to be fun. And then the final segment tonight, as we are the hopefully first, but maybe second screen in your 2-screen experience tonight as you take in the Dolphins and Bills. We'll do some other starter sits from around the NFL for non-Dolphins and non-Bills, and hopefully get those lineups set for dominance in week 3, whether you're playing in the FFPC or wherever else you're playing tonight. We're going to help you out to the best of our abilities. If you are looking for some action with the Fantasy Football Players Championship, go to myffpc.com because the week 3 weekly challenge is live there. There's no draft. There's no salary cap. You're just picking 10 players or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. You can win up to $2,500. You can play in 10, 30, or 100 team leagues, 1 player per NFL team. That means if you want Tua Tagovailoa, you can't have Tyreek Hill. If you want James Cook, you can't have Keon Coleman. Play now, myffpc.com, myffpc.com. We'll kick things off with the breaking news, Nate, that Tom Smith in the YouTube chat was already commenting on. Tucker Kraft apparently tweaked his knee in practice today for the Green Bay Packers. The early reports on this, it didn't sound all that great. Ian Rappaport posted on X that the Packers weren't all that concerned that it wasn't going to be a long-term thing, but the way Kraft played last week, the way he's been playing this season, we don't want it to be a short-term thing yet either. A lot of people placed their waivers already this week based on the opinion that Tucker Kraft would be starting at tight end for him, and now that may not happen. About a half hour ago, Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport posted that Kraft is believed to be, quote, all good after he underwent some tests today. One source told Schefter and Rappaport that it was a little scare. Another source told Schefter that they think he's going to be okay. These are not exactly the shutdown comments that we would hope to hear, that this is nothing and that he's going to be out there. Nobody has said that he is guaranteed to be out there against Cleveland at 1 p.m. this Sunday. I think, Nate, the smart advice we can give as best as you're able, make sure you have another option. Thankfully, this is not Brock Bowers of week 2, where we had to wait until 10 p.m. Eastern time to find out, or at least 8:30 Eastern time to find out if he was even going to be active, where you had to roster Tyler Conklin or Michael Mayer or somebody like that. This is a 1:00 game on Sunday. So the easy thing to do, just make sure you have a backup here. Again, I'm not concerned long-term with Kraft. I still am concerned that he might not go against the Browns on Sunday, a game where the Packers are 8.5-point favorites.
Well, and that would be my concern too, Eric. Not necessarily that the knee injury is necessarily that bad, but if there's a tweak, and everything I've read as well says the team thinks he's okay, but if there is a tweak and you're playing a team that you know you can beat without him, maybe you let your tight end one sit. He's been the focus of Jordan Love in the passing game. That would be my only concern. I feel like there's a chance they can sit him, but everything seems to point towards him playing. That said, always have a backup plan.
Yeah, you can't afford to take the zero, right? The goose egg just cannot be in your lineup at all this week. You have to have some sort of backup plan. And, whether that's Brenton Strange, whether it's Juwan Johnson, quite frankly, whether it's Luke Musgrave, that'd be another option that you could do. You think about, and I'll just go back to this. Like I was wrong about Tucker Kraft. There are a lot of smart people out there, and Nate, I don't know how you stood on this, but there are a lot of smart people out there after the Packers drafted Musgrave in the second and Kraft in the third that thought Kraft would ultimately be the better prospect, the better tight end. I didn't see it that way at all. I thought Kraft was probably the better blocker, but Musgrave does some stuff that Kraft can't do. Like Musgrave, even with all his injuries, Kraft does not have that speed. Musgrave's ability to split down the seam and make contested catches, going at full board, that's something we really haven't seen Kraft do. Now, Kraft does a lot of other stuff that Musgrave can't do as well. But when you think about how much the Packers have been targeting the tight end this year, I think you could do a lot worse than Luke Musgrave against the Browns if indeed Kraft is out on Sunday. Justin Fields will also be out on Sunday, Tank. We have Tyrod Taylor going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 3. This was announced on Wednesday, I believe. I think this was yesterday that they already ruled Fields out, which doesn't give you the warm fuzzies that Fields will be back in week 4. But this is a case of what do we do with Garrett Wilson? What do we do with Breece Hall? I don't know if anybody's necessarily counting on Mason Taylor in a non-bye week here in week 3. Taylor made 5 starts with the Giants back in 2023. This will be his first start as a New York Jet. He was 2-3 in 2023 with 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He's not going to push the ball down the field all that much. I don't know how much Fields was doing that anyway. I'll be honest with you. If I have Breece Hall, whether it's Fields or Taylor, I'm still probably doing whatever I was doing with Breece Hall before. Same thing with Garrett Wilson. These two guys are still tough benches for me, even with Tyrod Taylor. I don't think he's much of a super flex play, Nate, but certainly I'm not all that concerned, or maybe I should be concerned with the output of Hall and Wilson with Taylor throwing to him as opposed to Justin Fields.
Well, I think you're in a situation where you know that Breece Hall is going to get fed, right? You've got your backup quarterback in. You don't have that super mobile quarterback like you had with Justin Fields. Tyrod Taylor can move, but not in the way that Justin Fields does, where you want to give him 5 to 10 opportunities to get down the field during the game. That load's all going to go to Breece Hall. So Breece Hall is a must start for me this week with Tyrod Taylor. And I think we're okay with Garrett Wilson because it's the old adage, he has to throw to somebody, right? And who's the best receiver on this team? It's Garrett Wilson. That's where the ball is going to go. Wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s in this system, forget about it. They're not even worthy of thinking about a flex play even in deeper leagues. And I'm just going to say you threw out Mason Taylor. If you're starting Mason Taylor as your tight end 1, I have a lot of questions about your draft process.
Yeah, I think the only way you are considering Mason Taylor starting this week, if maybe you're playing in an FFPC tight end premium league and he's a flex, I would hope, like Tank said, I hope you are not starting him as your top tight end, but certainly I think regardless of who the quarterback is, that Taylor needs to be on benches. Nate, do you think this is actually better, given that Taylor does not have the rushing ability that Fields has, especially for Breece Hall too? I mean, we could see some more check down stuff to Hall than maybe we wouldn't have seen with Justin Fields. I don't want to say the backup quarterback is better for anybody because he probably isn't. If he was, he'd be the starter. But I do think that there is that aspect of Breece Hall's game that could get a little bit of an uptick in week 3 with Taylor in there.
Well, I think from a fantasy perspective, absolutely. From a real football perspective, obviously, Tyrod Taylor doesn't do the Jets any good. But from a fantasy perspective, I think he does in the realm of Breece Hall. And we're going to see Garrett Wilson get probably hyper-targeted. I wouldn't be surprised to see 12 to 15 targets for Garrett Wilson this week. And Breece Hall could be 10 targets. Again, you're saying with those checkdowns, it's not something we see as much with Justin Fields, but we're definitely going to see from Tyrod Taylor. Breece Hall could be RB1 this week. The situation is right for this Jets team where they're going to have to hyper use Breece Hall. He's going to just see a ton of touches and a ton of volume. He's a guy I'm not shy about firing up. And I feel the same about Garrett Wilson because, again, I think this could be a week where he's north of 10 up to 15 targets because of the situation for the Jets. What Tyrod Taylor does with those, I mean, that remains to be seen, but we also know Tyrod Taylor's a fairly accurate quarterback, right? And we're not asking him to throw deep downfield to get those targets to these players. We're asking for short to intermediate routes, which I think he can handle.
One of the themes that we'll get into throughout the show tonight is all these backup quarterbacks that are forced to play this week because of all the injuries to the starters. And I think what we have seen over the course of the last 5, 10, 15 years is that the number one target on teams, not necessarily all that adversely affected by the backup quarterback. It's the 2s, it's the 3s, it's the 4s. And thankfully, the Jets simply don't have a whole lot of other targets on this team besides Wilson and Hall. Taylor to a certain extent, but I think that's kind of early. So these guys, will they be hurt or not? We don't know because they weren't doing much with Justin Fields anyway. Let's go to Kansas City here, Nate. Hollywood Brown is practicing in full for the Week 3 game against the Giants. Xavier Worthy and Jalen Royals were also at practice yesterday, and beat writer Pat Leonard was saying that Brown did not look all that bad, did not look limited at all with the ankle issue that he had last weekend. He got 16 targets week 1, 5 targets in week 2, but I think the story here is what happens to Xavier Worthy. If he's available this week, what does that do to the startability, for lack of a better term, of Hollywood Brown? Xavier Worthy practiced again today, but he was limited. And certainly we'd like to see a full participation tomorrow. We may not get that. I would assume that both of these players are probably going to be listed as questionable for Sunday. Pretty good matchup with the Giants, right? You think about what Dak Prescott and the Cowboys did against this secondary last week. Obviously, if Worthy's active, you're going to play him. But what happens if Worthy's active, or even if he's not? What are we doing with Hollywood Brown this week against the Giants, Nate? Do you have any insight on what fantasy players, how they should handle Brown properly, dependent upon what's going on with Worthy?
Well, if Worthy is a full go in practice as we get later on into the week, you absolutely have to consider that that's going to affect Hollywood Brown. The early production that we've seen out of him in the early hyper targeting, well, the first week hyper target 16, kind of came back down to earth last week against a better Philly defense. He had the 5 targets. Now, this is more of a matchup like we saw week 1, where I think that they're going to pepper a guy like Hollywood Brown. If there's no Xavier Worthy, I think we see him in that 10 to 15 target range again in this offense, because there isn't a whole lot else to be excited about without Rashee Rice and without Xavier Worthy. But if Worthy is on the field and he's 100% and they're projecting him to get a full workload, that concerns me for Hollywood Brown. He becomes a back-end flex to me at most. At worst, I'm trying to find a bench spot for him and someone else to start over him.
I think that's good advice, and I think that's probably the right way to handle it. You know, like the biggest thing I was facing tonight was what do I do with Jalen Waddle versus Hollywood Brown? And to me, and we'll get into the Jalen Waddle aspect, but spoiler alert, I left Hollywood Brown on my bench in favor of Jalen Waddle. And I think that's, you know, the rest of it, we can wait till 1 o'clock on Sunday. We have no Friday game this week or anything like that, which is good. Dom Gazzetti joining us on YouTube right now. And I want to throw his question up here, Nate, and get your thoughts on this. He's torn on playing Jalen Waddle or sitting him for the likes of Cedric Tillman or Jauan Jennings. So I think the reporting that we have seen so far on Jalen Waddle all week was that, yes, he is a little banged up, but he is also fully expected to go. And I did see a couple of reports that stated that he's expected to be a big part of the game plan tonight. And why wouldn't he be, given that the Dolphins are significant underdogs on the road, and they're probably going to have to throw their way back into this game and in the second half or just to keep up with Josh Allen and the Bills. So I would imagine that would be the case. Dom's torn on this. We have Jalen Waddle tonight against the Bills. Cedric Tillman, obviously, at home against Green Bay on Sunday. And then the other one he mentioned was Jauan Jennings, who we'll get into later on in the show, who's at home against the Cardinals. To me, Tillman is a distant third between these two guys. When it comes down to Waddle or Jennings, I looked at all those targets that Jennings had, but I also understand that he's questionable. He's dealing with an injury as well. It's very close between these two. I lean towards Waddle. But Nate, if you go the other way on this, I have a feeling you might be able to sell me on it, because I could go either way on this one between Waddle and Jennings.
Well, I'm on your side with this. Jauan Jennings dinged up. It makes me nervous. We don't know who's playing quarterback in San Francisco. If it's going to be Mac Jones or it's going to be Brock Purdy. Jauan Jennings could have a huge game. He could put up a 0. That concerns me. Whereas Jalen Waddle with his game script against Buffalo, like you said, they're going to be behind. Tyreek Hill isn't 100%. They're going to be targeting Jalen Waddle, especially as it gets later in the game and they're trying to play catch up. I worry about Tua being his quarterback for obvious reasons, but I think for me it's going to be Waddle over Tillman and Jennings. Tillman's matchup against Green Bay, there's no way you can throw him out this week.
It's one of those things where, and I don't know how you think about this. The Browns, or what you think about this, I should say, the Browns have the best rush defense in the NFL right now, which say what you will about the Browns, but stats don't lie. Statisticians do. But the Browns have a really good rush defense. And if Green Bay can't get the ground game going with Josh Jacobs, by the way, they've struggled to do that the first 2 weeks of the season too. Then this game could be closer than what you might think, even as elite as the Packers defense has been. I'm projecting this is a 1-score game, a low-scoring game in this. And to me, that will not allow Tillman to get going later on in the game for, like a 5 for 110 and a touchdown or something like that. So I'm sitting Tillman, and it sounds like we're both united on Jalen Waddle here. Yeah. So Dominic, good luck on that. If we throw Michael Pittman into the gumbo here, I'm still saying Waddle over Pittman. What say you, Nate?
I'm going Waddle over Pittman. I like the matchup against Tennessee for Pittman, but I still think there's more upside to Waddle. And unless you're looking for the safer play, Pittman's obviously going to be the safer play in this situation. He's not injured. He's got the seemingly more stable quarterback in Daniel Jones and a better matchup. But Waddle has the boom potential because they're going to be playing from behind. So if you're looking for stability, I'd go Pittman. But if you need a boom, go with Jalen Waddle.
Total on that Colts-Titans game, only 43.5. The Colts are 4.5-point favorites on the road, too, which portends to a big game from probably the likes of Tyler Warren and Jonathan Taylor rather than Michael Pittman. Could happen with Pittman, but we're talking about ceiling. Don't set your lineup scared. Don't draft scared. Don't do anything in fantasy football scared. Aim for the upside, and that's Jalen Waddle here tonight. We saw some upside in the Seattle backfield on 2 different weeks from 2 different players here, Nate, and I think this is worth talking about with what Seattle's got going on against New Orleans this week. So Zach Charbonnet, the darling of draft season, the darling of week 1, and then sort of the donkey of week 2, as he saw more snaps, more targets, more touches, more carries than Kenneth Walker, but Walker did a whole heck of a lot more with his than Charbonnet did with his. This, according to the Seattle Seahawks official X account, Charbonnet missed practice today, and the Seahawks are probably not going to have him available for Sunday. This means this is massive for Kenneth Walker. You're going to be starting him everywhere. From a season-long perspective, 2-part question here, Nate. From a season-long perspective, are you Team Walker or Team Charbonnet? And then the other point here, too, with Charbonnet's foot injury, would you be looking, if you have the roster spot, given that we don't have any bye weeks that we need to worry about until week 5, would you be making a pickup on George Holani, who is now the new backup, if indeed Charbonnet misses this Sunday against the Saints?
I want to say yes, but no, I wouldn't be going after him. Here's the thing. While it's been a committee kind of between Charbonnet and Ken Walker, we're not sure who's going to go off. If Zach Charbonnet is out of the picture, this is Ken Walker's backfield. I don't care who else it is. So I'm just all in on Kenneth Walker. And I had Kenneth Walker ahead of Zach Charbonnet in my draft rankings. I've had him ahead of him in my weekly rankings. Obviously week 1 to my detriment, but week 2 to my benefit. Ken Walker's the better running back. It took him a little bit to get going last season, but when he got going, he got going. And a friend of the show, Mr. C.H. Herms, has convinced me on Ken Walker. We've had a lot of deep conversations about this man, and he is the RB1 in this system. We're seeing a lot of Charbonnet early, fine. If he's hurt and he misses time, this is all Ken Walker. It's a 20-carry, 10-target game for Kenneth Walker without Charbonnet.
That that Saints-Seahawks game is scheduled for a 4:05 start. The Seahawks, 7.5-point favorites. This could be a big-time Walker game, so I'm with you on that. That news, by the way, about Charbonnet just coming out about 5 minutes ago. So we don't often get a chance to, I say this all the time, we don't often get a chance to break news on this show. Maybe we do often get a chance, because I feel like I've been saying that a lot, and we get some more Charbonnet news here coming out of Seattle. Let's go back to the YouTube chat. Ray C, getting back to the Tucker Kraft discussion. with Kraft questionable, is Romeo Doubs a good flex versus Xavier Worthy if Xavier Worthy plays? He said he's scared to play Worthy his first game back, which I totally get, Ray. The Doubs thing, even before the Kraft injury, like I think he was in the conversation with no Jaden Reed, right? You have Christian Watson obviously out, you have Jaden Reed out, and now you may or may not have Tucker Kraft out. Yeah, it makes perfect sense that to want to play Doubs. You have Xavier Worthy this week. Who does Kansas City play again? Is it the Giants? Sorry. So they are at the Giants. I think Doubs versus Worthy is a tough conversation to have. If you are scared about playing Worthy the first game back, I don't think there's anything wrong with playing Doubs. I think he's a fine play. In fact, if you ask me tomorrow, I might change my mind on this. Right now, I say Doubs, but I think Worthy's good too. Oftentimes when we as analysts get questions like this, we say, oh, you really can't go wrong. Well, chances are you probably will, because one of these plays will be the correct one and one will be the incorrect one. I lean towards Doubs here. What say you, Nate?
I lean towards Doubs. I tend to stay away from players who are coming back from an injury, especially if they've missed like the first part of the season, a chunk of games, first 1, 2, 3, 4. You always see it takes a minute for them to get back into the offense. And then this game against the New York Giants, more than likely, this is going to be Kansas City's first win, and it's probably not going to be a super close game. It's definitely not going to be like Dallas, New York last week. Kansas City gets into a run-heavy script in the second half, and Xavier Worthy, healthy or not, he's just not going to see a lot of targets because he's a down-the-field guy, versus Romeo Doubs has a role in this offense now. I'm comfortable flexing him with or without Tucker Kraft, kind of to your point to what you were saying. So I'm firing up Doubs regardless right now. Even if Kraft is playing this week, I'm still starting him over Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, and I think you make a good – I mean, not that I want to bring baseball up and compare it to baseball, but I think there's plenty of people – that would use the same analogy about starting a pitcher in his first start off the IL. There is some trepidation with that, where you just don't know how this guy is going to react, even if he's had rehab starts or whatever. And you just don't know what's going to happen the first game. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be okay. But yeah, there's more of a risk with starting Worthy than there is with Doubs, who's already not only involved in the offense, but dude hardly ever comes off the field. In regards to Packers receivers. Now, there's some players that will just play just about every single snap anyway. The Packers are notorious for rotating the receivers, but if there's one guy that's out there more than anybody else as far as the wideouts go, it's definitely Romeo Doubs. We also have another question with Sam21 here. It's a quarterback question, Nate. Does Sam21 start Justin Herbert against the Broncos or Baker Mayfield against the Jets? Both of these quarterbacks are at home. I lean towards Herbert here, and maybe this is lazy analysis, but let's face it, that's what I do. Justin Herbert, a 2.5-point favorite for his Chargers with a total of 45.5. The Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield, 7-point favorites, 43.5 is the total on that. We saw what Daniel Jones did against the Broncos last week. Certainly, we saw how the beast, the mighty beast that is the Broncos defense can be fell, I should say. And I think Herbert and Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey, all these guys, they are dialed in right now. The ground game really hasn't gotten going so far in Los Angeles. There's a lot to like about Herbert. I think both of these guys are good starts this week. If I'm forced to choose between these two, I lean towards Justin Herbert, Tank.
Yeah, I'm with you. I lean Justin Herbert as well. I love Baker Mayfield. I've been trying to find a Baker Mayfield creamsicle Tampa Bay jersey for the longest time for the right price, but they're hard to come by. But in this instance, I'm going Justin Herbert, and it's because of the matchup. I like him against this Broncos defense because they don't have Jonathan Taylor, Eric. They're not going to be able to roll out Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris for 160 to 200 yards rushing. It's just not going to happen against this Denver defense. So the impetus comes on to the passing game, which I think they can succeed at, especially with all these receiving options. You got Quentin Johnson, you've got Ladd McConkey, you've got Keenan Allen. They're all playing well. This is going to be a good week for these receivers and for Justin Herbert, so I'm firing him up over Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, it's probably Herbert here. And listen, it's so close that something may sway me tomorrow, but based on everything I've seen so far over 2 weeks, has me saying Herbert here. Mr. Bakes-A-Lot also chiming in. Who is Josh Jacobs' backup? Is it Emmanuel Wilson or is it Chris Brooks? The latter had more snap share percentage than Wilson. I would say, Mr. Biggs, a lot that if I wanted to roster one backup Packers running back, it'd probably be Chris Brooks. It seems like he has been on the field more, obviously, as you just pointed out. He's definitely getting more of a target share, although it's kind of minuscule between the two, but he's getting more of the passes. I'll say this too. I think Emmanuel Wilson operated as the backup most of last year with Marshawn Lloyd on IR. But if you looked at what Chris Brooks brings to the table and what they believe, how they believe in him in Green Bay, there was a game last year against the Jacksonville Jaguars where the Packers were rallying at the end of the game to try to take the lead with just a few minutes left. It was like 3 or 4 minutes left on the clock. And it wasn't even Josh Jacobs on the field. It was Chris Brooks out there. This is with them trailing the Jaguars and needing to take the lead. They had Brooks out there over Jacobs. Brooks is catching the passes. They seem to trust him more in pass pro as well. So again, I think that both of these guys can make sense for you if you're rostering, a backup Packers running back. But if you can only do one and both are available, I'm taking Brooks. Nate, how do you feel about it?
I'm taking Brooks. To be honest, Emmanuel Wilson is on this roster because he plays special teams as well. Otherwise, I don't know that he would have necessarily made the team, especially with Marshawn Lloyd, hurt, not hurt. He's still going to be a factor once he's healthy. However, Chris Brooks, nearly 20% snap share both weeks versus Wilson had a 4% snap share week 1 against Detroit and a 7% snap share week 2 against Washington. And he only has one carry, where we've seen Brooks get involved. Only the one carry week 1, but he had a target. But then he had 4 targets against Washington last week. 3 catches, 27 yards. He is clearly the running back 2. Emmanuel Wilson is on this team because he does special teams, so it's got to be Chris Brooks.
I want to go to your neck of the woods here and talk about the Denver Broncos. Nate, are you a Broncos fan, or do you just happen to live in Denver?
Oh, no, I'm a Broncos fan. I was born and raised here and lived through those 3 awful Super Bowls.
Hey, there was 2 great ones in the late 90s with victories over the Packers and Falcons. So there was that. And then the Peyton Manning Super Bowl too. I forgot about that.
That
wasn't that great?
No, it was awesome.
Why are you doing it? Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, I'm not at all.
The one against Seattle was bad, obviously, but the one against, was it Carolina that they beat?
Yeah, it was Carolina.
Yeah, Carolina. Yeah, that had to be pretty awesome. So the next 2 things I want to bring up is stuff going on with the Broncos offense. Zac Stevens, who is a Broncos beat reporter, said that Sean Payton said RJ Harvey is quote an important piece of what we're doing. Let's take a trip back in the Wayback Machine to May or April. RJ Harvey was drafted in the 2nd round, higher than I think a lot of people thought he was going to go. But he's gotten through 2 games, 11 carries and 3 targets in the passing game. J.K. Dobbins has clearly been the lead back here, and they also have something called a Tyler Bidet that is just gumming up the works in the passing game as well, making it really, really frustrating, not only for Harvey owners, but for Dobbins owners as well. When talking to the press yesterday, this is what he said: is he's an important piece of what we're doing. We have not seen RJ Harvey treated like an important piece of the offense yet, but he is a rookie. And sometimes we have to wait until the second half or even the last third of the season to see some ROI on our investment in these day 2 rookies. So here's the thing, Nate. You're not cutting Harvey. Clearly, I would not advise anybody to cut Harvey. But I think at this point, Harvey's first breakout game for the teams I have him on, his first breakout game he will firmly be on my bench, as I got to see it before I can start him.
Oh, same with me. I know Sean Payton says a lot of things. We have a saying around Optimus Fantasy. I don't believe anything Sean Payton says at all, ever. He could tell me the sky is blue and I would have to double check to make sure he wasn't lying to me. It's coach speak, and he's one of the best at it. Harvey will be involved in this offense. He's an important piece. We don't know when. My gut feeling is telling me we're not going to see a lot of Harvey until we get into week 6, 7, and 8, where we've got the Jets, the Giants, and Dallas back to back to back. That's when I think we see him. But I called this at the beginning of the season, and I said, yes, roster him, definitely roster him, but have tempered expectations early in the season. It takes these guys a minute to get into these offenses, and this Denver offense, this Sean Payton offense, is a complicated offense. It's not one of the more complicated offenses to run in the NFL. It's going to take the kid a minute. He wasn't supposed to be a 2nd-round pick. This was a guy who was supposed to be a 3rd or 4th rounder. Denver moving up to get him. Obviously, Payton believed in him. something told him that he needed to move up to get him if they wanted him. He will get used, but just be mindful of the fact it's going to be a few weeks, but hold him for sure.
I think you could say that. I mean, that's good advice just for rookies in general, whether it's, RJ Harvey or Travion Henderson. Travis Hunter is another one that I think people are a little bit upset about right now as well. That just practice. You drafted rookies. You got to understand, you got to practice some patience with all these guys. And if it's just a few weeks, I'd be thrilled with that. I'd be very happy if we get into, week 6, week 7, week 8, and RJ Harvey is a top 20 running back. Hey, I know that we're going to be good as gold for the remainder of the season then. Denver Broncos website stated that, and I haven't seen it today yet, Evan Engram did not practice in yesterday's practice. He had a calf injury after week 1 and now has a back injury, according to the Wednesday injury report from the Broncos. 31 years old now, has not been getting a ton of looks so far with Bo Nix and the Broncos. And we don't know if this is just a case of Evan Engram starting the washed portion of his career, or Sean Payton just loves Adam Troutman, or just loves spraying the ball around everywhere. You think about Mims and Franklin and Sutton at wide receiver alone, and not to mention Pat Bryant too. But the fact that he's not practicing on Wednesday because of a different injury than what he had last week, it's not great. And if you do have Evan Engram on any of your teams, Nate, I would say not only is this guy probably should be on your bench this week, you need to start looking elsewhere and picking up, and a lot of the tight end crop off the waiver wire is probably gone now. Like the Jauan Johnsons of the world have all been picked up. So you kind of have to look at like only playing Evan Engram in the best possible scenarios, and only after he shows you something. There's a lot of guys I would rather be starting this week that you probably could have picked up off the waiver wire in FFPC leagues, or even drafted later. Maybe you drafted Evan Engram and Harold Fannin. Harold Fannon's obviously a slam dunk over Engram right now. Brenton Strange you're starting over Evan Engram. I would say that Jatavian Sanders, given how involved he was in week 2, you're probably starting him over Engram as well. And Nate, this could all be a moot point because he may not even play this Sunday, but I am really, really down on Evan Engram right now. How do you feel about it out in Denver?
Well, what we've seen and versus what we expected to see are two completely different things. He's got 6 targets, 4 catches. He doesn't even have 40 yards receiving through 2 games. And he has a sub 50% snap share in both. We expected to see a lot more Evan Engram, but at this point, with the injuries, the age, you start to worry. Like, okay, this might be it. And like you're saying, is he getting into his washed stage? I think there's a good chance he is. Denver bought in a year too late. Jacksonville got the last of the best of him. And now you're going to be kind of stuck. But there are other options. There's some guys who are widely available. Noah Fant is someone who's picking up some traction. And I have a feeling he might see a little bit more work here with Jake Browning over the next 3 months. He's not a bad ad, just as some insurance if Engram doesn't play. I'd even be willing to take a chance right now on Cole Kmet, because Colston Loveland clearly isn't going to take over that job anytime soon. It's still Cole Kmet's in Chicago. And when Caleb Williams really gets going this season, we saw how he targeted Cole Kmet last season. I expect that to kind of come back here week 3, week 4, week 5 in Chicago.
I think that, utilize the Cole Kmet now while you can, because I do think Loveland takes over the second half of the season. And quite frankly, with Rome Odunze, who we'll get into a little bit later on, with what he did last week, there may not be that much to go around for Cole Kmet anyway, which speaks volumes about starting him over Evan Engram. Speaks volumes about what we think of Evan Engram at this point in the conversation. Jauan Jennings, actually, before we get into Jauan Jennings, let's go back to YouTube. Rich Bates hanging out and watching us on YouTube tonight. What's up, Rich? He needs help for tonight between 2 receivers, both in action. Khalil Shakir for the Bills or Jalen Waddle for the Dolphins. I go back to how I think this game is going to go. I think the Bills and James Cook and Josh Allen are going to be putting up mondo points, as the kids say. And as a result, Waddle is going to have a much bigger game than Shakir. You think about the passing tree that's available in Buffalo versus Miami. Buffalo, you have Shakir, you have Coleman, you have Moore, you have Kincaid, you have James Cook. You have all these guys there. And then you look at Miami and it's Hill. It's obviously Achane, and then it's Waddle, and then that's about it. And I think Miami's going to be throwing a lot more than Buffalo. So for me, Nate, this is pretty clearly Jalen Waddle for me.
Oh, it's clearly Jalen Waddle. I love Khalil Shakir, but week 1 we saw 9 targets in a pass-heavy game against Baltimore, especially in the fourth quarter. We saw him target a little bit more when they were trying to come back. Then against the Jets, 2 targets, 1 catch. He had 12 total yards. That's more like what we're going to see in these games where they're going to be ahead. In this game against Miami, this is a James Cook, Josh Allen game. I think we see a little bit more Dalton Kincaid, but I don't think we see a lot of Khalil Shakir. We're not going to see a lot of Keon Coleman. These are guys who are going to be back in wide receiver 3s this week at best.
Moving on to Jauan Jennings. We touched on him earlier, but I do want to get your kind of read on the situation right now that we can explore this a little bit more freely. He came back after, I think he was on the injury report pretty much all of last week heading into that week 2 game. And now, and I haven't gotten the practice report yet today, but I know he did not participate in yesterday's practice dealing with not that calf injury that sidelined him for weeks in training camp, but shoulder and ankle injuries right now. The shoulder injury he suffered in week 1, played through it last week, but the ankle thing was added yesterday as well. He wound up getting 10 targets despite not practicing at the opening part of last week as well, more than anybody else on the Niners, including McCaffrey, including Pearsall. And certainly against Arizona, I would imagine that, and I know Adam Hahn was talking about this on one of the other shows this week, that's saying that Arizona's defense has been solid so far. Well, they're pretty banged up in the secondary right now, and Jauan Jennings could definitely take advantage of that. Regardless, I mean, like if he doesn't practice today and if he doesn't practice tomorrow, then obviously I'm down on him. But as long as he gets even a limited practice in on Friday, I really like Jauan Jennings as a flex against the Cardinals this week, Tank.
Well, given the state of this offense, if he's healthy and he's playing, you're firing up Jauan Jennings because he's going to get volume. It's him and Ricky Pearsall and like Jake Tongas and Luke Farrell. Oh, and obviously Christian McCaffrey, but there just isn't enough to scare me off. As long as he's playing, I'm going to start Jauan Jennings. Unless you have a better option, of course. This all comes with the caveat. I'm not starting him over Garrett Wilson. I'm not starting him over Jamar Chase. But yes, in a reasonable spot, yeah, I'm not afraid to fire up Jauan Jennings.
I think like Keenan Allen, I think you could make the case would be a better start than Jennings this week. I think after what we saw from Jacoby Myers on Sunday night, you could make the case that you feel more comfortable starting a guy like Jacoby Myers in our nation's capital over Jennings this week. But outside of that, I mean, I don't know if there's a whole lot of guys you want to mess around with. I mean, like I like him better than Ridley. I like him better than Hollywood Brown, even if Worthy comes back, or even if Worthy doesn't come back. Think about tonight, Keon Coleman. I like him better than Keon Coleman as well. So sticking in San Francisco, let's talk about the Brock Purdy situation, because this, I think, is much more – this is probably the most interesting quarterback situation because it's the one that's truly up in the air right now. KNBR reported just a few minutes ago that Brock Purdy was limited in practice. By the way, Matt Barrows reported that Jennings did not practice again today. That just coming out a couple of minutes ago too. So he's got to practice tomorrow because if he doesn't practice tomorrow, Tank and I take it all back of what we said about Jauan Jennings.
All of it.
Brock Purdy limited today, so he was out there at least partially with the toe injury. He was asked if he thought he could play this weekend, and he said that the decision is going to come based on how he feels at game time, or at least 90 minutes before game time when the inactives are announced. So it sounds like he could suit up. Kyle Shanahan did mention earlier in the week that there is a possibility that he could not start, but be the backup quarterback this week, which I thought that was interesting. Like, the fact that he's saying that, I think gives me a little bit of hope that he could actually be feeling really good on Friday, really good on Saturday, and be ready to go on Sunday. The issue here now, Nate, is that this is a 4:25 start between the Cardinals and the Niners. And it's going to be very difficult to say, oh, I'm going to wait on Purdy if your other option is, say, I don't know, CJ Stroud or Trevor Lawrence or Aaron Rodgers, even, Drake May, Matthew Stafford, players like that, Carson Wentz even, or Jake Browning is another good one too. So I don't know if I want to be in the business of waiting on Purdy unless I have and pick up Mac Jones. And then I think I'd be willing to wait. Now, you may not have the roster spot to do that, in which case I saw Brock Purdy dropped in one of my leagues. I'm not dropping Purdy. I still want to keep him on my team. I still believe in him long-term. But as far as this week goes, if you don't have the roster spot to pick up Mac Jones and you don't have anybody else that you can slide in the late games or Sunday or Monday night, I think you have to sit Purdy this week. And if he plays, so be it. He's going to play on your bench.
I don't think he's going to play. What you hear the word toe, and we just saw what happened with Joe Burrow. So we know that this is a turf toe adjacent injury. I've been saying all week we need to pay attention to what happens with this because this could turn into something more long-term, which is why I don't think San Francisco is going to play him this week. Mac Jones was perfectly fine. They can win this weekend with Mac Jones at quarterback. They don't need to roll out Brock Purdy. Kyle Shanahan's smart enough not to risk it. That's why they're saying, okay, well, he'll be our RB2, or our QB2. If we absolutely have to put him out there, we'll do it. But right now, we believe Mac Jones is good enough. That's what I'm hearing coming out of San Francisco. So I think you're safe to bench Brock Purdy. I wouldn't even think about it this week. There are other options.
The Kyle Shanahan aspect of this, I think, can't be underrated because if this would have been another coach or another offensive coordinator, I'd be nervous about Mac Jones. Say what you will about Shanahan's offense, but it does seem, and maybe he's just a really good quarterback coach, but it does seem there's a lot of quarterbacks that can just come into this offense and churn out stats, move the football, get yardage, get points, throw touchdowns. Mac Jones is another case of that. Now, he was a pedigreed guy, bear in mind, and he was a guy that a lot of people thought that would be drafted by the Kyle Shanahan and the Niners. That didn't happen, but now he's definitely making things happen in San Francisco. And I think regardless of who the quarterback is for the 49ers this weekend, I think they both put up startable numbers. So I think you are more strong in your belief that Purdy's not going to play. I think he is still on the doubtful side of questionable. Gun to my head, I would say he doesn't play, but I do think there is a chance. Like Jim Carrey said in Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance. Yes, there is a chance that Brock Purdy could be playing on Sunday. Moving on to Jacksonville. Oh, yeah, this is going to be a fun one to talk about. Bhayshul Tuten. We just talked about at the top of the show, Nate, that you have to practice patience with a lot of these rookie running backs. And I mentioned some of them that were struggling. Omari and Hampton's another one. Ashton Genty certainly has not been the panacea we thought our fantasy teams were going to get. But then you think about a guy like Bhayshul Tuten and what he was able to do this past week. It just it warms the cockles of my heart for all the teams that I took Tuten on as a running back 3 or a running back 4. Ryan O'Halloran said that Tuten was wearing a non-contact jersey at practice this afternoon. He was officially listed as limited on the injury report. He's dealing with a shoulder injury right now. The fact that he was out there, I think he's going to play against Houston, but certainly you don't like to see a running back wearing a non-contact jersey on Thursday. What do you make of Tuten this week, assuming he's active, assuming he's playing? Is this a guy that you'd feel comfortable starting, or is he still closer to the, man, if I don't have any other better options, I guess I'll put Tuten in as my flex? How do you view that Jacksonville running back situation right now, Nate?
Well, I want to preface this with saying I have been in on Bhayshul Tuten since I saw him in Mobile back in February. There's a level of explosiveness and footwork that he has that a lot of other backs who were in Mobile at the Senior Bowl just didn't have. I really do believe it helped his draft stock. It's how he landed in Jacksonville, and when it was the 4th round, I think he was projected more of like a 6th round prospect. However, this is not the time to start him. I do have him rostered, but I have him rostered in some deeper leagues where I know I can sit him on the bench until we get into week 6, 7, 8, 9, because right now just isn't the time. It was really cool to see that he got a touchdown last week, but without that touchdown, what did he really do? 8 carries for 42 yards, 2 catches for 32. So we're, in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 fantasy points without that touchdown. Not great. He is touchdown dependent right now. There's no guarantee he's going to get one. I don't really love this Jacksonville offense, but Travis Etienne is a guy that I'm looking at starting. Tuten, I just can't get on board with it right now. Even without Tank Bigsby around now, I still think the majority of this volume goes to Travis Hunter until we get a little bit later in the season. They trust Bhayshul Tuten a little bit more. Don't forget he had the muff week 1. So there's still some work to be done with Tuten. He'll get there this season. Phenomenal dynasty asset, but he'll get there this season, and there'll be a point to start him. It's just not this week unless you're desperate.
I think he's in the Trevion Henderson category for me right now, where like if I don't have anybody better, then yeah, I guess I'll play him. But I think Judkins and Scadaboo, speaking of rookie running backs, I like both of those guys better than Tuten this week. Obviously, Genty, Hampton, Ja'Cory Krosky, Merritt. I'm just listing off the rookies that I like better this week than Tuten. He's close, but he's not there yet. I want to talk about Chris Godwin with you here because we have seen a lot of great stuff so far from Emeka Egbuka, who, by the way, I think we should bring up the fact that, and I'll have to bring up the practice report right now, and we'll just make this a conversation about the Buccaneers in general. But Emeka Egbuka missed practice yesterday. Brian Kaz reporting that he did not practice on Thursday, today either. So this is 2 consecutive missed practices for Egbuka, who is dealing not only with a hip injury, but a groin injury as well. Now, this could just be Tampa being really, really careful with him to make sure that he's healthy enough to go on Sunday. It could be something where, he's dealing with something significant and he may not be available tomorrow. And beg your pardon, on Sunday. And if that's the case, like we know Chris Godwin, the report here that we got from, I think it was Jeremy Fowler. Yeah. Said that there's a real possibility that Godwin's back in week 4, but not in week 3. So we might see the Cade Otton, Mike Evans show. Obviously, Mike Evans, you're starting anyway, but this is a serious situation because Sauce Gardner is on the Jets. You wonder if Baker Mayfield's going to be able to move the ball successfully if Evans is locked up by Gardner and if Egbuka can't go and Chris Godwin's not going to be out there. Going back to that Mayfield versus Herbert question, this is another reason you start Herbert over Mayfield. What's your level of concern about Egbuka? And then what do you think Chris Godwin is stepping back into in week 4?
Well, I'm concerned about Egbuka. I'm pretty heavily invested in him. Love this kid. Love the landing spot. Love the offense. But I'm worried. 2 days without practice for a rookie. They're not rest days, right? We know they're not just resting him. So I think there's some level of concern here that he might not play on Sunday. If he doesn't play on Sunday, I think we're looking at Jalen McMillan might be rosterable and startable this week. We saw what he did last season when Chris Godwin was hurt, and he just in general got involved in that offense. And with Chris Godwin coming back in week 4, Eric, I have tempered expectations for this because we've seen this man come back from injuries and he gets started very slowly. And this was a pretty serious knee injury last season. This isn't just some sort of knee tweak or a hamstring injury. His knee was pretty messed up. I'm not super excited to start Chris Godwin probably till week 8, week 9. And I'm just praying that Emeka Egbuka gets back healthy and plays this weekend, or at least is back by week 4. And then Cade Otton, you mentioned him. I love him. I'm going to talk about him on our DFS show tomorrow for this very reason, because Egbuka is so questionable. I think he's a great start this week if Egbuka doesn't go. Fire him up. We know Baker Mayfield loves him and trusts him, and we've seen Baker Mayfield hyper-target him when the situation calls for it. This could be that situation this weekend.
When is that DFS show and where could people watch it, Nate?
You can find us tomorrow. It is not live. We'll be posting it right around noon Eastern Standard Time. It's myself and Mike Reedy on the Optimus Fantasy YouTube channel.
Okay, perfect. So you're looking at noon Eastern Time, and you can check that out and see not only what you have to say about Cade Otton, but a boatload of other players as well. One of the other players we want to talk about right now is Christian Kirk. Tom Pelissero reporting that Kirk was limited in yesterday's practice. D'Amico Ryan saying earlier this week that he does expect Christian Kirk to be in the lineup and not necessarily start, but play in week 3. Christian Kirk, that means his debut in the NFL for his first team other than the team that, I beg your pardon, because he played for the Cardinals. I forgot about that. But his first game as a Texan could be against the team that he was just playing for in the Jacksonville Jaguars. You think about Christian Kirk entering this lineup that has Nico Collins obviously as the alpha, Dalton Schultz who's just sort of there, and then just this weird rotation of Jaden Higgins and Xavier Hutchinson. It seems like the volume is there if Kirk can snare it. Similar to what we were saying about Worthy, I do have some reservations about playing Christian Kirk this week, his first game back, his first game in real life as a Houston Texan. And you think about his upside is nowhere near what Xavier Worthy's is. So I think Kirk, even if he's active in this game, as excited as I was to draft him as my wide receiver 4, my wide receiver 5, I think I'm just going to have him sit on my bench this week and see, what he does first before I start tossing him in as a flex.
Well, yeah, I'm not starting him this week, and I'm not starting him until I see him actually get used in this offense. The Houston offense now, after the 2 weeks of struggle with CJ Stroud, feels like maybe DeMeco Ryans going to start to condense it a little bit. We're going to see a lot more Dalton Schultz, a lot more Nico Collins, a lot more Nick Chubb. We're not going to get a whole lot outside of that. And I don't know if anybody's ever done as much on just hype alone than Christian Kirk has in fantasy sports. Because if you really go back and look, he's had one solid season. He was wide receiver 11 in 2022. Outside of that, he's been at best a wide receiver 26, but he's been wide receiver 38 or worse every other season of his career. He's now in a system where they have Xavier Hutchinson. They have the younger guys, Jalen Nolan, Jaden Higgins, that they're really excited about. They've got a competent tight end in Dalton Schultz. He's a good veteran ad, and I feel like he's a depth piece on this team that they need. I don't know that he's a guy that's going to eat up a lot of targets, and I don't know that I'm going to find a point this season where I want to start him. I have him rostered a couple of places, kind of a wait and see thing with him, but I don't have a lot of hope for Christian Kirk this season.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind, too, with Kirk is there is some contingent upside with him if Nico Collins goes down, which Nico Collins has gone down before. If he were to go out, certainly a lot of those targets are going to be funneled to Christian Kirk out of the slot, and he'll be much more involved in the offense. It's one of those, I wouldn't call him a Nico Collins handcuff, but there is something there. I think there's a lot worse ways to spend a roster spot than having Christian Kirk on your team going forward. And you know he could be one of those guys where you just never play him, you never start him, and that's fine too, because if you never have to play Christian Kirk, it means your team is probably in really good shape going forward for the fantasy playoffs. Speaking of your team being in really good shape, if your FFPC drafted teams aren't the greatest this week, and you want to you want to supplement some action with that, go to myffpc.com for the FFPC weekly challenge. There's no draft there's no salary cap with this. You just pick the 10 players you want or the 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. 10, 30, and 100 team contests. You can win up to $2,500. The entry fees start at $35. Only one player per team. If you want Christian Kirk, you can't have Nick Chubb. If you want Patrick Mahomes, you can't have Xavier Worthy. myffpc.com is where to go, myffpc.com. When we come back, let's talk about the Thursday night football game, the Dolphins and Bills squaring off. How does this affect your fantasy rosters? We've answered a lot of Jalen Waddle questions so far. I want to talk about sort of like the future of Devon Achane, at least from a season-long perspective, and what you need to be doing if you can move off him right now. Should you or should you not? We'll talk about Tua Tagovailoa's startability tonight in Superflex leagues, and we'll also talk about James Cook and Ray Davis being good starts tonight. That and more. You're watching FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. He's Nate Polvogt from Optimus Fantasy. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. We roll on right after this.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. You know, we all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at myffpc. You can go out and you can take the number one running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at, $35, $100, or $200 buy-in, and you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week, and that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers, and when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high-stakes games are. That's where the best experts play, and that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket, and put that in my bio, FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
Welcome back to FFPC Insider Access here live on the Better Sports Network. We are coming up on 5 minutes until the top of the hour. Joined tonight by Nate Polvogt from Optimus Fantasy. Good guy, great fantasy analysis. And Nate, I should have given you the opportunity to talk about this at the top of the show. But Optimus Fantasy, relatively new, but you guys have been around for a while. OptimusFantasy.com. What can you tell the viewers about this, about your website?
Well, we've got a lot of awesome written content coming out pretty much every day throughout the season. Waiver wire, start, sit, just some vibes articles to help you kind of make some decisions on those lineups. Maybe aren't specific start, sit questions. Plus, we are launching our tools.optimusfantasy.com. You can head over and check those out right now. Check them out with the trial code 3. Get $10 off your first 3 months. That's what we've got going on.
Perfect. And that code is 3. OptimusFantasy.com is where to go. Make sure you're checking it out. I want to get into our Thursday night football preview portion of the program, given that we have kickoff in roughly 20 minutes or so. The narrative, the overwhelming narrative, Nate, that we heard during drafting season was that everybody had bad vibes, not only about the Miami offense, just about the Miami team in general. There was a question whether Mike McDaniel might make it through, like whether he was going to make it through the season or not as head coach. We've heard reports saying that if the losing continues in Miami, that Mike McDaniel could be on his way out. And I'll be honest with you, there's a non-zero chance that if they get blown out tonight, Mike McDaniel might be unemployed tomorrow. That probably won't happen, but it definitely could. And I think, how do we apply this to fantasy? Does this mean that we should be ignoring Dolphins in general? Or does this mean we should be striking in on players who would thrive with negative game scripts? You have Achane, who's probably going to be good no matter what. But then you have players like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who, if the Dolphins are throwing a lot, that conceivably should benefit them. But then you throw in the whole conversation about, well, they threw a lot last year, but they wanted to get the ball out of Tagovailoa's hands so early. He couldn't hit Hill deep. He couldn't hit Waddle deep. And through 2 games, we're seeing a lot of that again. Waddle did get into the end zone tonight. You and I will talk about Waddle here shortly. We've been talking about him a lot tonight as far as why we like him so much. But the bad vibes certainly exist in Miami right now. What's the best way for FFPC and fantasy football players to be attacking this to make sure that they can use this situation to their benefit for their fantasy teams?
Well, you definitely got to cut bait on Tua, right? I mean, I think we're at a point now where unless you're in a 3-quarterback league, which that would be insanity. I've done a couple of those. I don't recommend it. Get rid of Tua. Achane, completely startable. He's the RB1. He's going to see the volume. There really isn't anybody else to suck up volume from him in this offense right now. I like Jalen Waddle. I am worried about Tyreek Hill, though. I mean, we saw week 1. He only had 8 fantasy points. He only had the 6 targets. He got 7 last week. Turned that into, 15.57 yards per target, which was much better than week 1. But I'm still concerned about his volume and his attitude. We've heard some weird things coming out of that locker room. And at this point, I feel like Achane and Jalen Waddle are the only guys you can trust on this team. They're going to see volume, especially in these negative game scripts where they have to throw the ball. We're going to see a lot of targets towards Achane as well as Jalen Waddle, but these are the only 2 I want in this offense.
I want to pitch something to you in Superflex leagues, or you mentioned QB3 leagues, to start 3 quarterback leagues. It makes sense for Tagovailoa. Even with all of the quarterback injuries, Joe Burrow, J.J. McCarthy, Justin Fields, who went down as well, Jaden Daniels, who, quite frankly, is probably not going to play this week. Even with all those guys going down in Superflex leagues, are you still benching Tagovailoa in a game tonight? And I'm going to look this up right now just so I have this right. That has a total of 50.5 with the Dolphins as 12.5 point underdogs. And I'm not saying I wouldn't do the same thing. Are you still benching Tagovailoa tonight, even in Superflex leagues, Nate?
Yeah, I'd rather start Jake Browning. I mean, the guy averaged 20 fantasy points per game when he filled in for Burrow in 2023. I feel like that's more than you can hope for out of Tua tonight. If this offense succeeds at a fantasy level at all, Tua will not be a part of it. It will be in spite of what Tua is. He just isn't good. He looks scattered, and I can't trust him even in 2 quarterback leagues. If I lost Joe Burrow and Brock Purdy, I'm looking elsewhere on the waiver wire. I'm starting Mac Jones. I'm going after Jake Browning. I probably already picked up Daniel Jones at some point in that situation. So yeah, Tua's on the bench if he's even on my roster.
The other aspect of trying to take advantage of this, seemingly sinking ship that's in Miami right now, Devon Achane is a player who, through it all last year, came through for fantasy owners. And quite frankly, for the most part this year is coming through for fantasy owners. It could have even had a bigger week last week without a seemingly a touchdown that was not called a touchdown. Is he going to be able to keep it up for a second straight year on what should be a bad team, what should be a team that is going to threaten to have the worst record in the NFL? And at the same time, if he's not, would you be looking to sell on Achane right now? Not necessarily in dynasty leagues, because I think that's a different animal. But if you are playing in a redraft league that allows trading, how worried are you about Achane still keeping up this level of production on a team in December that's probably going to be playing for 2026?
I'm not worried because I don't know what else they're going to do on offense. They're just going to have to funnel a ton of volume towards Achane. That's all they really have. And at that point in December, this team is in sell mode, fire sale mode, rebuilding mode, whatever you want to call it. They're just going to hand the ball to Devon Achane. And that's how I'm looking at it. There are probably going to be some down weeks. They have some tougher matchups. They'll probably have a hard time running the ball against Cleveland in week 7. I would think they'll probably have a hard time against Washington in week 11, but outside of that, maybe Pittsburgh week 15. But most of these should be positive game scripts for Devon Achane, where he's getting a lot of volume. So I'm not worried about him at all, regardless of what this team is doing. They could be winless, and I still think he's going to see enough volume to be a high-end running back.
Well, Tyreek Hill was a player that a lot of people were down on, but he came through for the most part for fantasy owners last week with a good week 2. Tonight, again, the game script sets up for him to have a big night. What is he back to you, or like you're just starting him and you're not thinking about it? And then what do you think is going to happen to him the remainder of the season? How do you play it if you have Hill? Obviously, for me, if he strings together another couple of good games, I'm probably going to be trading him in dynasty leagues just to see what I can get for him, because I think his best football is probably inarguably behind him at this point. How much more does he have left in the tank? I don't know. But this is an enigma wrapped in a riddle, smothered in secret sauce when it comes to Tyreek Hill and what you do with him for the remainder of 2025, especially after that big week 2, Nate.
Yeah, it's tough because I don't see a lot of those big week 2 type games down the slate for him. I see more of what we saw in week 1 against Indy, where it was 6 targets, 4 catches, 40 yards. Really wasn't anything astounding, just because this is an offense I think can't move the ball. They had a better matchup last week. New England's defense isn't phenomenal. Talk to someone who's a New England Patriots fan and they'll tell you exactly how bad this defense is. And I think that they were able to get some things done against this defense. Tyreek Hill concerns me. I don't know the best way to say this, but there's some crazy in that man. And if this team is really bad, I'm not convinced that he stays with the team rest of season.
I want to do, because as we're talking about Jalen Waddle so much tonight, let's play a Would You Rather as far as who you're starting with him. And Dom, I'm going to get to your Achane, Ollie Gordon point in just a second. But I want to bring this up because it seems like you and I are both pretty bullish on Waddle tonight. Let's play a Would You Rather. Would you rather start Jalen Waddle tonight against Buffalo, or would you rather play Chris Olave at the Seahawks?
Waddle, no question.
Waddle or Jamison Williams at Baltimore?
Waddle.
Waddle or Devonta Smith at home against the Rams?
Devonta Smith.
Waddle or DJ Moore against the Cowboys?
Boy, Waddle now.
And then Waddle or Keenan Allen at home against the Broncos?
Keenan Allen.
Let me just throw one more in for fun. We'll get to him later on in the show. Are you still playing T. Higgins over Jalen Waddle? T. Higgins at Minnesota?
T. Higgins saw a bump in production with Browning in 2023. Okay. So yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So that's the Dolphin side. Well, no, that's not the Dolphin side of it. We'll go to Dom Gazzetti's point, and he frames it in a way I think Ollie Gordon needs to be rostered in all leagues for sure, at least all 12-team, 20-man leagues for sure, and we've seen him rostered on all FFPC teams as far as I can tell. But let's play, what if here? What happens if Achane goes down? How good of a start is Ollie Gordon? Is he just flex worthy for you, or would he enter into that top 20 running back echelon given what Achane's been able to do with his touches in Miami. With Gordon in that role, how good would he be?
I think Gordon would be pretty good. I'm not ready to say that he's like an RB1 if he steps in. He's a rookie still, and we have to remember that, as impressed as we are. And I'm impressed by Ollie Gordon. Phenomenal player. But not all volume is going to be the same. And I think that if we see Ollie Gordon, first of all, he has to be efficient with his touches, which we don't know if he can do at the NFL level yet. He hasn't maybe possibly learned enough about the game because he's not an RB1. I wouldn't just directly plug him in. I'd be nervous about it. He's probably, I'd say he's like if you need to, you can flex him should Achane go out, but I'm not running to start him as my RB1 or RB2.
I want to get over to the Bills side of the football before kickoff in about 10 minutes here and talk about Josh Allen with you briefly. Obviously, he had the nasty bloody nose last week and I don't even know what happened. Did he get punched or kicked or something in the nose that it was wild and gory and crazy. You look at his numbers, 14 and 25, and he, by the way, did come back into the game too. 14 of 25 for 148 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. He did have 59 yards on the ground. What do you think happened in that game? Was this just a case of they got ahead so far, so early that Allen was not asked to do a lot? And quite frankly, if that's your answer, are we going to see that again tonight? And I'm not saying bench Josh Allen, but you think about FFPC Weekly Challenge, stuff like that. Maybe this means that Josh Allen is a guy that you only start in season long, but you're not playing in weekly or DFS or anything like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch Josh Allen in DFS this week, and that's what I think it was. That's all it was. They were playing a really bad Jets team. Justin Fields was out early. They had to rely on Tyrod Taylor. It was very clear from the beginning of this game who was going to win. And why overuse Josh Allen when you don't have to? Just give the ball to James Cook and Ray Davis, which is essentially what they did. They didn't have to do anything else. It's not indicative of something being wrong with Josh Allen. I don't think he's hurt. I don't think this is a sign that he's going to be a downturn throughout the season. You don't need to be selling him. He's going to be fine. But this week against Miami, we're going to see a lot of James Cook again. And that's just the way it's going to be. You're probably going to get a down week from Allen.
The James Cook aspect, I want to talk about him and Ray Davis, but we do have Stephen Grease on YouTube right now asking us some questions about some starter sit decisions that are facing him. This is full PPR that he's asking about. He's got DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle, or Romeo Doubs. He can only play one of those three receivers. Between Moore, Waddle, or like we talked about how we like Doubs or whatever. Between Moore and Waddle, I think we both decided DJ Moore, right?
Yes, I would go DJ Moore this week.
Moore over Waddle. It's close for me. I think you can make a strong case for Waddle. The total on that Bears-Cowboys game, I have not looked at this. It's got to be high between those two with the way their defenses played last week. Yeah, 50.5 in that game. The Bears are 1.5-point home dogs in that game as well. So there you go. DJ Moore, second part of his question, would you pick up Romeo Doubs, dropping Evan Engram when he already has Harold Fannin and Kyle Pitts? Yes, I would make that.
Absolutely. 100%. I love Harold Fannin. Do it.
Did you get a chance to watch him? Was he at the Senior Bowl? I don't even know.
Yeah, he was.
Okay. All right.
He was, and he was phenomenal. He really is truly a big slot. He's exactly what we were told Mike Gesicki was, but he actually does it. And I think Cleveland's actually using him that way, which is nice to see.
Bub Hunt Shrimp, I think is what it is on Twitch. You think I should start these at wide receiver? I'm assuming Jamar Chase, Keon Coleman, and flex either Marvin Harrison Jr. or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. So I mentioned at the top of the show, oftentimes when the starting quarterback goes down, it usually affects the more ancillary players, not the number one target. So I think Jamar Chase is a fine play this week. I think he does numbers, no problem there. And if it comes down to starting either Keon Coleman, Marvin Harrison Jr., or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I don't know, man. Like this might be silly of me to say, but I think I might still lean Harrison Jr. here over Keon Coleman and over Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. As much as I like Krosky-Merritt this week, that I think that, he puts up, borderline and maybe even solid RB2 numbers. I'm infatuated with that upside with Harrison Jr. and I'm not necessarily seeing it with Coleman. I think I would go if you have to pick two of those guys. I think for me, it's Chase and it's Harrison.
It's going to be Chase and Harrison for me as well. And I have my concerns about Marvin Harrison because he's not the number one target in his own offense. But this week, this is a matchup where I feel like he can probably sneak into being wide receiver 10 to 15, and I would fire him up.
Next question comes from William Brown. This is a good one about Ashton Jeanty, our level of concern on him. He looks good when the ball's in his hands, but he went the wrong way on a handoff, and he didn't look interested in pass blocking. So here's how I'll answer this. We've already talked about, I don't care how good you are, if you're still a rookie, there's a learning curve. It's not like he's LeBron James or anything like that, where he's coming in, or Jaden Daniels, for lack of a better football player. That is rare. Okay. Even though Jeanty was the 6th overall pick, it's going to take some time for him to pick up the speed of the game, which is why I think what looked like being uninterested in pass blocking to us might be him thinking rather than reacting. And I think until the game slows down for him, you're going to run into stuff like that. My level of concern on a scale of 1 to 10, probably at like a 2, maybe. I still think he's going to do numbers. I still think the Raiders believe in him. The draft pedigree will dictate that he has to prove he can't play before the Raiders cut bait and look elsewhere. So he's going to get an extremely long leash. He's still one of the best players on that offense. I've seen flashes already, Tank. I'm a big believer in Jeanty. I'm still starting him, and I think the second half of the season for him is going to be a lot better than the first half.
Well, yeah, my concern level is 0. He's a rookie in his first 2 games. He was the alpha in his offense at Boise State. He's not necessarily the alpha in this offense. I think that's something to get used to, where this is a multifaceted offense. It doesn't revolve around him, and it doesn't need to right now. He had 20 carries week 1 against New England. The inefficiency sucked. I mean, 2 yards per carry is a bummer out of a guy that we're all expecting to just come out of the gate being a football god. But this is normal. This happens. Not every guy's going to come out and have a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson rookie season. I still think he's going to be a top 5 running back by the end of the season. But what this also signals to me is that Pete Carroll, and we know Pete Carroll is a phenomenal head coach. Great track record. He develops players well. I think that they're taking the onus off of Ashton Jeanty for these first few games. Don't put it all on the kid. Let's make it easy for him. We've got guys like Zamir Wright and Raheem Mostert that we can lean on a little bit here. Let him ease into it. He's going to be fine.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I guess I always people are talking about Ashton Jeanty as Trent Richardson. Now, while I admit that there is a non-zero chance that could happen, I am not putting that label on him after 2 games as a rookie with the Raiders. It's not going to happen for me. Dominic Gazzetti piping in here. I got a doozy. Marvin Harrison Jr. or Terry McLaurin. Things to consider. Marvin Harrison's lack of production thus far in his career, and also Terry McLaurin getting the ball thrown to him, not by Jaden Daniels this week, but by one Marcus Mariota. I'm going with Harrison here over McLaurin.
I'm going with Harrison too. I don't want Marcus Mariota throwing balls to my wide receiver 1, so it's going to be MHJ for me.
Ice Cold Jones, the OG, chiming in right now on YouTube. He's got a decision to make. He can only keep one of, I'm assuming he can only keep one. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ice Cold. But he can only keep one of these defenses on his team for the rest of the season. He can do Baltimore, he can do Buffalo, or he can do Denver. Now, this is probably a good problem to have. And when the case is, if you have to let 2 of these go, there's probably a good chance you might be able to pick them up and stream them if you have all of them right now. If you can only keep one, it's Denver for me. I know Buffalo has a really soft schedule coming up, but I would put them 3rd on this list. I just like the playmaking ability of the Baltimore defense better. So I would rank them Denver, Baltimore, Buffalo, although I think all 3 of them are going to be great defenses to own throughout this season.
Yeah, I've got them ranked the same. Denver, Baltimore, Buffalo. Buffalo's had some pretty easy opponents to start the season. Outside of Baltimore, of course. That was a very tough game, but both of those defenses suffered in that game. Denver's the superior defense. Then it's Ravens and it's Bills for me. It looks like he says he could keep 2. So I guess if you're keeping 2, it's Broncos,
yeah.
Ravens.
I misread that. Yeah. Pick 2. So yeah, for me, it's Ravens and Broncos for sure. I want to get back to the James Cook, Ray Davis conversation. Let's say that you have Ray Davis. Obviously, James Cook is a slam dunk start. But let's say you have Ray Davis on a team, and obviously in the FFPC, you can flex out 2 players, so you could start 4 running backs if you wanted. What if you're looking at Ray Davis as a potential sneaky start tonight? If the Bills do run away with this game, do we see a lot of Ray Davis in the second half? Is he flexible for you right now, Nate, or is that just getting too cute?
I think it's getting too cute. As much as I want to be able to flex him, in junk time last week, he had 9 carries for 24 yards, 2.67 yards per carry. Right now, he's still kind of a change of pace bit player, and I think they're just going to keep going to James Cook because he's been so dang good. Ray Davis's value will come when they start targeting running backs in the passing game a little bit more often. He's a phenomenal pass catcher, and yards after the catch is something that he does very well. This isn't that week. I wouldn't flex him this week. The weeks will come, and I can't wait for them, but this is not a week to flex Ray Davis.
And the other thing to keep in mind, too, is the weeks will come when he'll be a starter if James Cook misses any time, because then you could be looking at, potentially top 5 production from Ray Davis as well. The Bills receivers, we got a little bit to a couple of minutes before kickoff here. Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Joshua Palmer. These 3 guys, all vital cogs on this offense. Is one of them going to step up tonight? For me, I'm probably looking elsewhere. I don't want to start any of these guys. I think I am starting Shakir in one spot where I have some injuries at wide receiver. I really don't want to play any of these guys. Do you have a good feeling about any of these guys tonight?
No, and it's going to be hard throughout the season to tell who's going to be the guy. Because Keon Coleman was the man week 1, and then he had 3 targets last week. This is going to be such a spread out offense. It's going to be targeted all over the place. You've got Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, Dalton Kincaid. You've got Dawson Knox, someone who for some reason still gets targets. It's frustrating, but most these receivers are going to be guys who you flex, praying that this is their week, and you hope you get that week most of the season. I'm not excited any week to start any of them.
Can you make a case for Dalton Kincaid at all? Can you make a case that this guy is not a bust, that he is still a vital part of this Buffalo passing attack? Because I think there's a lot of people, even though we're only 2 games into the season, there's a lot of people that are already having buyer's remorse on Dalton Kincaid, and maybe some dynasty players in the FFPC where it is tight end premium, where Dalton Kincaid was a high draft pick, first-round draft pick in a lot of these rookie drafts that happen. Can you make a case why Dalton Kincaid still is a player that we need to be believing in?
I want to. I'm trying to, but
you can't.
You can't. And here's the problem, because you look at Kincaid has 10 targets. Dawson Knox has 7 targets. That's not that's a 50-50 basically tight end split amongst targets. It was supposed to be Dalton Kincaid taking over. We all drafted him in dynasty drafts last season, 2 seasons ago, thinking he's going to be the wide receiver 1. They don't have that alpha guy on this team without Stephon Diggs. It hasn't happened, and I think at this point it's pretty clear it's not going to happen. Again, this is an offense that spreads the ball out. Everybody gets a little piece of the pie, so these skill position players outside of James Cook, it's hard to know who's going to get what, and I can't make the case for Dalton Kincaid.
The Dolphins ended up getting the opening kickoff tonight, and D. Eskridge actually returned this into Buffalo territory, a 54-yard return. And then the first play from scrimmage, we see a Malik Washington 5-yard catch from Tua Tagovailoa. Malik Washington I did not bring up tonight because nobody's considering starting him. What about the roster ability for Malik Washington right now, knowing about the rumors of Tyreek Hill potentially not ending the season with Miami, knowing he could be on his way out? And I know there's more than a few people that were excited about Malik Washington just purely from a talent level. Do you think that he deserves a spot on 20-man, 12-team rosters right now, knowing that there could be an opportunity for him down the road as early as this season?
If 20-man, yes, absolutely. 12-team, 20-man rosters, I think there's absolutely a spot for Malik Washington. Because if Jalen Waddle gets hurt, Tyreek Hill gets hurt, Tyreek Hill gets jettisoned off of the team, he's going to see an increase in opportunity. What that opportunity becomes, that's hard to tell, but we know the opportunity will be there, and there aren't a lot of guys at that level that you can get on the back end of your roster that could potentially have that opportunity. He's worth rostering for me. It might not come to anything. We might get Tyreek for the full season. This team could just be straight up awful, give up, and just start running the ball 40 times a game. But if that all doesn't happen, I really do like Malik Washington as a stash right now.
The first third down in the game, 3rd and 4, Tagovailoa hits Tyreek Hill for a 5-yard gain, and the Dolphins have the ball 1st and 10 from the Buffalo 41, which is what you want to see here if you're Miami. Let's just string together some plays here, string together some first downs, and get out to an early lead on Buffalo. Tagovailoa has hit Devon Achane for a 15-yard catch as well, as they are knocking on the door of the red zone right now without the services of one Darren Waller, a player that certain people were excited to draft as their number 3 tight end in best ball, or just number 3 tight end in general in FFPC leagues. At this point, he is out again tonight with a hip injury, still has not played in the NFL in a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it is. Are we wasting our time with Darren Waller in tight end premium leagues, or do you think you still need to find a way to keep him on your roster just to see what he has in the tank when he eventually gets on the field? Who knows when that's going to be, though?
I don't think he sees the field. And I think that the people who were telling me preseason within Optimus were saying, don't even expect him to take a snap. He probably won't end up actually playing. He left the league because he was hurt a year and a half ago. Now he's back. I get being excited because of what he was before the injuries and before he retired. But you don't take a year and a half off after those injuries, come back, and be an effective tight end in the NFL. This was an experiment for Miami. It's going to be a failed one. There's no reason to have him on your rosters.
Malik Washington with his second catch down to the Buffalo 9. The Dolphins have it now 2nd and 7 from the Bills 18. Is there any fantasy goodness at the tight end position in Miami that we need to be looking at? I feel like in tight end premium leagues, we're always looking at every single team, similar to how super flex leagues are. You're always looking at every single quarterback. Is there any tight end worth his salt in Miami, or are you just completely ignoring it?
I'm completely ignoring it. When they had Jonnu Smith, I was excited about him, but there's nothing. Julian Hill. No. I'm out on I'm out on tight ends in Miami, man.
Which is totally fine. By the way, that 9-yard catch by Malik Washington, the second one, was actually called back because of an ineligible man downfield. So now you're looking at 2nd and 7 from the Buffalo 18 as the Dolphins continue driving down. I think I've exhausted everything I wanted to talk about with the Bills and Dolphins. I know it's early yet. We could probably still get a prediction on this game. Do you see it the same way I do, that the Bills win this by 2+ touchdowns?
Oh, yeah, they're going to cover the spread. You said it was 12.5. They'll cover that easily. Yep. Yeah, this is a big Bills win.
It's by the way, it's looking pretty good right now for the Dolphins, as Devon Achane has a 11-yard run down to the Buffalo 12. So Achane already with 12 yards rushing, 15 yards receiving. This is what you want to see for if you're an Achane owner, at least on the opening drive. Our opening drive is done. I want to come back after this break and talk about a bunch of start sits. Some players that we've talked about, some players we haven't. I want to get into Alec Iamaner with you. We need to talk about Wan'Dale Robinson's big performance. James Conner and sort of how that backfield got interesting with Trey Benson. And then, of course, Daniel Jones, a player that we need to be discussing here in force, at least until he falls on his face. Maybe it won't happen this year. You never know. We'll talk more about Optimus Fantasy as well. He is Nate Polvogt from Optimus Fantasy, at Nate Polvogt on the X, at Optimus Fantasy on the X. I'm Eric Balkman. You are watching the FFPC Insider Access show as part of your two-screen experience tonight here on the Better Sports Network. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back and answer your questions on start sits for week 3.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps, or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number 1 running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at: $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket and put that in my bio. FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
Insider Access on the Better Sports Network rolls on here. We have 24 minutes past the top of the hour. I'm Eric Balkman from the FFPC. He is Nate Polvogt from Optimus Fantasy. Follow him on X at Nate Polvogt and at Optimus Fantasy, optimusfantasy.com. We've been talking about this Dolphins-Bills game tonight. And we mentioned earlier why Ollie Gordon needs to be rostered everywhere. Well, he's got 4 carries for 11 yards tonight, including a touchdown as he gets the Dolphins on the board on their opening drive against this Bills defense. 2-yard rush puts the Dolphins up 7-0, 8:31 to go in the first quarter. I'm checking my phone. I'm checking the internet. I'm like, is Devon Achane hurt? Why is Ollie Gordon getting 4 carries here, Nate? But maybe this is just the case of like, hey, they're inside the 10. They're inside the 5. This is Gordon territory. Tyreek Hill alluded to it in the offseason, why Achane shouldn't be in here. Maybe that's all it is. Achane with 27 total yards here tonight, but Gordon is the guy who gets on the board first.
Well, Gordon's 6'2", 225, 230 versus Achane, who's my size. So I'm going to take the 6'2" guy at the goal line versus the man who is my size every time. And that makes sense. And these things are going to happen with Ollie Gordon. But from a week-to-week basis, you can't trust that this is going to happen for him every week.
Yeah, and you're listen. When you draft Achane in the second round or whatever it was, I know he was dealing with that. Was it a calf in drafting season? There's a lot of people that were pushing him back down to the mid, sometimes late second, because they didn't want to. They remember Christian McCaffrey from last year, right? And they didn't think it was serious, but you never know. It turned out not to be. If I'm investing that kind of draft capital and I have to, give up this occasional touchdown to the bigger, meatier, tougher, stronger, bigger, running back, that's fine considering everything, all the action he's getting in the passing game and all the action he's getting between the 20s as well. Dennis Rodriguez chiming in. It was a product of his size for sure. The Buffalo red zone tightened up quick, and we'll see what the Bills can do now. Down 7-0 here tonight against the Dolphins. Let's get into some start-sit questions for week 3. I put in some spicy ones here, Nate, and we'll kick things off with a habanero pepper here. A.J. Brown or Rome Odunze? Now, normally this would not be a conversation at all. However, consider that the Eagles, and I think John Hansen from Fantasy Point said this, that the Eagles are continuing to set professional football back a century with how much they've been running the football. They haven't been throwing it. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith owners are going crazy. My son plays in one fantasy league, and I'm not going to bore everybody with the details, but the majority of the draft was auto-drafted for all 12 teams, and he was upset that he has both A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith on the team. They are too good to sit, but they have not been producing like starters, which is interesting because Rome Odunze produced like a starter last week. 2 touchdowns, a massive breakout game. If there's any question that he's not the number 1 wide receiver for Chicago, they were answered that week. But if it comes down to it, and I know a lot of people aren't in this situation, Nate, they can probably play both of them. But let's say you're loaded at running back or tight end or what have you. Would you sit A.J. Brown this week against the Los Angeles Rams in favor of Rome Odunze, who's playing against the Dallas Cowboys?
I would because Chicago's going to throw the ball a lot against Dallas. This is going to be a little bit of a shootout game. It's going to be similar to what we saw against the Giants last week from Dallas. A lot of throwing, a lot of targets for Odunze. And it wasn't just week 2 that he kind of started to separate. He had the 9 targets in week 1 and he had a touchdown. It was only 37 yards, but he did get that touchdown. He's the clear wide receiver 1 now. A.J. Brown is also the wide receiver 1 in Philly, but the question remains, how much are they going to run the ball? And it feels like it's going to be a hell of a lot because that's what's working for him right now. Conversation I had earlier on our Dynasty show was that's what this offense is. This is like the Chiefs last year. We don't care how we win. We don't care if it's ugly. This is what our team needs to do to get there. and it feels like that's what Philly is. That's going to hurt A.J. Brown, at least in the short term, over the next probably 3 to 4 weeks until they put it together and start throwing the ball more, playing prettier football, or this is bad news for A.J. Brown rest of season because they're going to keep playing ugly ball and running the ball down everyone's throats, and his targets are going to be minimized. So in this win, especially against the Rams this week, I don't know that we're going to see a huge A.J. Brown game. I want Rome Odunze.
You know, it takes a special collection of players to buy into this, especially receivers, when you consider how a lot of them, especially the best ones, can be a little diva-ish from time to time. You have A.J. Brown talking about how, he doesn't care about his targets as long as he's, they're winning games, even if he's taking attention away from Devonta Smith or Saquon Barkley. That's helping them move the football, get first downs, and winning. This guy is reading books on the sideline, so clearly he is not concerned about his personal stats. Like, he's already got his bag 2 times over now. And so I think that in regards to Brown, when you have a player who, granted, is the number 1 receiver on his team, but they are decent favorites. I have to look this up right now. The Eagles are favored in their game against the Rams by 3.5 points. Totals at 44.5. Flip the script to Rome Odunze, who's actually a 1.5 point underdog with a total of 50.5. Players be players, talent be talent, but situation be situation. And the situation is saying Rome Odunze here is probably the better start over A.J. Brown this week as well. Dominic Gazzetti also agrees. It's got to be Odunze over Brown. Karash Sarai, on YouTube wants to know if he should trade Chase Brown and Emeka Egbuka for Bucky Irving. He has Hill, Odunze, Harrison, Keenan Allen, and Kyron Williams. They can only flex one player out. I always like getting the best player in the deal, and oftentimes that's the one the side that just with one player. Even with the Jake Browning injury, I'm not sure you're getting the best player in the deal. I think you already might have the best player in the deal. I don't want to give up. I don't know if I want to give up Chase Brown for Bucky Irving straight up. I definitely don't want to trade Chase Brown and Emeka Egbuka to get Bucky Irving. I think you stand pat on this.
I agree. My reasoning's a little bit different. I would do Bucky Irving straight up for Chase Brown, but I'm not giving up Egbuka to get Bucky Irving.
Okay.
I like Bucky Irving a lot. I'm a little bit lower on Chase Brown than most people just because of the efficiency. It's not there. It wasn't there last season. We haven't seen it this season at all. But it really comes down to Egbuka. I can't give him up. The kid's too talented. His ceiling's too high.
The James Cook show is going on right now in Buffalo, as we have had a pass interference penalty committed on Keon Coleman that got the Bills all the way up to their 35. And then it was a James Cook 5-yard catch. It was a James Cook 16-yard run, and now an 11-yard run and a 3-yard run for James Cook. So he's already up to 30 rushing yards on the game, and the Bills have it 2nd and 7 from the Miami 30, 6:21 to go in the first quarter. Dennis Rodriguez, we might be in for a 200-yard night with Cook. Yeah, he's only 170 yards away. It could happen. There's a non-zero chance of it. It'd be a lot of fun, especially if this is a blowout. It'd be fun to watch a 200-yard rushing game tonight for sure. I want to talk about the pastor on Twitch. He also has a trade that he wants us to discuss. He got offered Ladd McConkey and TreVeyon Henderson in exchange for Chase Brown. He still has Jahmyr Gibbs, Jordan Mason, and DeAndre Swift as his running backs, and his wide receivers are Thomas Jr., I'm assuming Tedoroa McMillan, and George Pickens. This is full PPR. Nate, would you give up TreVeyon Henderson, or excuse me, would you give up Chase Brown in exchange for TreVeyon Henderson and Ladd McConkey, given his running back situation?
Absolutely.
I
wouldn't even have to think about it.
It's not I did have to think about it. I came to the same conclusion as you. But I'm not, it wasn't like quite a no-brainer for me. So I guess this kind of goes back to what you think about TreVeyon Henderson. And we can get into this right now, actually, because I do have a start-sit question here for you. TreVeyon Henderson or Cam Skattebo. I think it's Skattebo this week, but I think Henderson is still the more valuable asset. I just think he's taking his lumps. He's paying his dues right now. Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniel really value the veterans on their teams, and they don't necessarily always play these rookies unless they're like, field flipping, world changing rookies, which I think Henderson is close to, but I don't know if he is. So Henderson, I would probably sit in week 3, but going forward, I think he's gonna be really valuable down the stretch.
So yes, but what I do worry about is what we've seen what Josh McDaniels does with running backs. It's always a committee. It doesn't matter who the running backs are. He's going to split the work weird, and there's really almost no way to predict how he's going to split it. However, I think Trevion Henderson is good enough to kind of break free of that. I just don't know when it's going to happen this season. He's more of an asset I'm excited about in Dynasty long-term, getting into the 2026-2027 seasons where I think he becomes the RB1 over Ramondre. That said, I'm willing to take a chance on him getting the lion's share of the work sooner this season. Plus, you're going to give me Ladd McConkey, who, despite Quentin Johnston's massive explosion these first 2 weeks, Ladd McConkey's still the wide receiver 1 for Justin Herbert, and that's going to come out later in the season. You're going to get more points out of McConkey alone than you're going to get out of Chase Brown. Toss in Trevion Henderson, I'm happy.
Just as we were ready to give up on Dalton Kincaid, he says, pulls the Lee Corso, says, not so fast, my friend. From the 20-yard line, Josh Allen hits Dalton Kincaid for a 20-yard touchdown. The extra point from Matt Prater is good. We have a tie ball game, 4:04 to go in the first quarter. And congratulations to everybody who had Ollie Gordon and Dalton Kincaid scoring the first touchdowns for their teams tonight on Thursday Night Football. It's why we watch, Nate. It's why we watch. And it's also why we can't stand it.
Well, if we knew what was going to happen, it wouldn't be any fun. And
right.
When I'm watching games, the best advice I can give anybody who plays, if you get frustrated watching games because of your fantasy players, put that out of your head and enjoy the damn games. They're fun.
I just watched the play too. Kincaid just kind of found a soft spot in the zone coverage, made a catch, did a great job of keeping his balance, and then took a hit right at the goal line and still scored. It was a Tucker Kraft-esque play from Dalton Kincaid to score on this one. So kudos to him, man. I'd love to see him succeed for sure. Getting back to the Trevion Henderson or Cam Scadaboo question, Dom Gazzetti posted this, and Nate, I had not heard this. I don't know if it's true, and quite frankly, Dominic doesn't know if it's true, but he heard that Tyrone Tracy was complaining to the coaching staff about the offensive game plans, and that's when they shifted the focus of Cam Scadaboo out there. We also found out, too, that I think this was last year that Tyrone Tracy was returning kicks until he became the RB1 for the Giants because that was just too much to, you don't want to put your starting running back out there. And I think Tracy was returning kicks again on Sunday with Scadaboo taking over. I hadn't heard this report about him complaining to the coaches. Had you heard anything about this?
So I hadn't, and I just looked it up as we were talking, and apparently after week 1, he did complain to the coaches about the game plan, and he publicly complained in an interview post-game. That's not a good look. And I liked Cam Scadaboo anyway. I figured that there was a point where he's going to take over this backfield over Tyrone Tracy. It looks like Tracy just pushed the issue and made it happen a little bit sooner than all of us thought.
Probably not a good business decision on his part, considering that he's still on a rookie deal and very expendable for sure, especially when you have Scadaboo on your team as well. Yep. Getting back to receivers, T. Higgins or Cortland Sutton. We mentioned this earlier that the number 2, the number 3, the number 4 options oftentimes pay the price when the backup quarterback comes in. You had mentioned that Browning was actually good for T. Higgins in 2023. So I think I know where you're leading on this one, but I'll ask you anyway. Cortland Sutton caught 1 pass last week. That was a game when Bo Nix threw it in the air 30 times, and Sutton only came down with 1 catch. It was the Troy Franklin show. He had 8 catches. If you can only play Higgins or Sutton this week, Nate, who's it going to be?
It's going to be T. Higgins. And time will come when Cortland Sutton gets back to being the Cortland Sutton we saw last season. But this matchup against the Chargers, it's not it. This is too tough of a defense. I think we see a lot of Franklin. I think we see a lot of J.K. Dobbins. I think we see a little bit more RJ Harvey. So I can't trust him. I'm going to have to go T. Higgins here, especially given that we did see a bump in his production with Jake Browning last time he played with him. I think this is a good matchup for T. Higgins. So Higgins over Sutton this week.
The next one I have is the Tennessee Titans, Alec Ayamaner, not sure how to pronounce it still. Sorry to the Ayamaner or Ayamaner family, or Matthew Golden. Things to consider on this. Calvin Ridley, the purported number 1 receiver for Tennessee this year, has 14 targets through 2 games. Alec Ayamaner, this day 3 rookie, has 13. 1 target behind Ridley. Matthew Golden did not catch a pass last week. Got a couple of targets. They both could have been touchdowns. They were just slightly off on the timing between him and Jordan Love. He did have a couple of carries last week on Thursday Night Football as well. However, he's not only not dealing with Christian Watson, he is not dealing with Jayden Reed now. This is a game against Cleveland on Sunday that I don't know necessarily from the get-go I thought was going to be a big blow-up game for Love and Golden. However, when Love was asked about how do you deal with the loss of Jayden Reed, who's going to have to step up, he said, well, all the guys are going to get more targets now, but the only guy he mentioned by name was Matthew Golden. So that's another thing to consider. If you are, looking at flexing one of these guys out this week and you only have one spot in your lineup, would you rather play at Iomanor or would you rather play Iomanor or Matthew Golden?
I'm going to go with Iomanor, just because I love the chemistry between him and Cam Ward. We're seeing consistent targets, 7 week 1, 6 week 2. He got the touchdown last week to put him at 15 fantasy points. The matchup against Indy, this is going to be a throw-heavy script. It's going to have to be because, as we've seen, Indy apparently can score with Daniel Jones. Who knew? So this is going to be, I see Iomanor getting another 6, 7, 8, 9 targets this week. I think he snags a touchdown. I think he finishes as like a mid-range wide receiver 2 this week. And I think that's going to be the trend with Iomanor. I don't trust Calvin Ridley. I haven't trusted Calvin Ridley since he was in Atlanta, since he got hurt and missed that season. And I can't trust him. Iomanor is the guy here.
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. And this is I just saw a blur before we went on the air that there's this connection developing between Cam Ward and Iomanor that actually started in training camp. So there is something to be there's something to be said for that as well. Moving forward, I want to talk about the other receiver here, Ridley or Wan'Dale Robinson. This, I don't think necessarily is a Calvin Ridley question as much as a Wan'Dale Robinson question. Robinson is a player that showed out stuff on Sunday with Russell Wilson that we haven't seen him do since college. He was never like this deep threat in the pros like he was for the Wildcats when he was at Kentucky. This is whether you believe it or not. This is whether you think Wan'Dale Robinson is becoming more of a well-rounded receiver instead of the quote hashtag PPR scam that he had been last year, where he was catching 7-8 balls a week for like 40 yards. If you can only play one of these guys this week, who's it going to be? Ridley is taking on the Indianapolis Colts, I believe, right? Yep. He's got the Colts at home. And then, of course, Wan'Dale Robinson, we had already mentioned earlier that the Giants this week are taking on the Chiefs at home on Sunday Night Football. Who's it going to be, Ridley or Robinson?
I'm going with Robinson. There's just so much more upside. His ceiling's so much higher. He's got 18 targets. He was the second most targeted wide receiver on this offense last year. As you mentioned, 140 targets, but he was the PPR fake, PPR ghost, whatever you want to call him, because they were these short, tiny targets, but it was still working. If they're extending his targets, but he's still seeing 18 and Russell Wilson can get it down the field to him, I'm okay with this, and I think it continues because this Giants offense doesn't have a lot going for it. And I'll say this, that Brian Daboll's playing for his job, so he's going to do everything he can to get this team to at least look good in losses. Kansas City's secondary isn't great. They let Ladarius Sneed go a couple seasons ago. It's been all downhill from there, in my opinion. I think they can throw against Kansas City. They're not going to win, but I think they can throw against Kansas City, and I think we see a heavy Neighbors Robinson game. And I just, like I said, I don't trust Calvin Ridley, so I'm going to go Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah, it's close for me. I think I am going to go Ridley here. I'm just a little bit nervous that I'm too excited about what I saw from Robinson last week. And then he drops down to his typical 6 for 30 or something like that, which is still valuable in its own right. But I think you made a good case for Iomanor over Ridley too. And I think I have to consider that as well moving forward. It was a crucial third down here for the Dolphins as Tagovailoa fumbles the shotgun snap. He did recover, got a few yards, but it was not enough for a first down. The Dolphins have now punted. The Bills have it at their own 37, 2:24 to go in the first, 7-7. They've gone to break. We are not, as we press on here with Ice Cold OG Jones' latest question on YouTube. And I think this is a good catch-all question, given we had all the quarterback injuries happen last week, hopefully for the season, but that's probably not the case. He's got to pick one of these guys. He got Jake Browning, Mac Jones, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, or Aaron Rodgers. These are all players that were either picked up off of the waiver wire or they were drafted late. None of these guys had early round draft capital written all over him. So you look at this. Browning is at Minnesota. Mac Jones is at home against the Cardinals. Russell Wilson at home against the Chiefs. Matthew Stafford at Philly, and Aaron Rodgers, of course, at New England. I think if you're relying, here's the thing. If you would have Mac Jones and Brock Purdy, I would say it's Mac Jones. If you don't have Purdy and you only have Jones, he's not worth waiting on. I really am excited to see what Jake Browning can do for the Bengals the remainder of the season. And even though he's going up against that Brian Flores offense on the road, I think I'd play Browning here.
I'd play Browning as well. He has more upside. I don't trust Russell Wilson. He had a good week last week. Fine. Matthew Stafford. Yeah. I mean, I feel like he's got like boards strapped to him to keep him together. Like somebody's pulling puppet strings to play him at quarterback. And Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be good or he's going to be awful. And I don't want to take that risk. Browning's a middle of the road guy here with upside and a safe floor.
The Browning thing is I think people forget. Like 2023, he was like putting up borderline like top 15 numbers at quarterback. And you know the best part about him, Nate, is this guy plays with little Jameis Winston in him, right? Like he'll pump the ball downfield. He doesn't care. Maybe it's a touchdown, maybe it's a pick. Who cares? Either way, he gets to come back on the field again and try for another touchdown, which I think would be better for the Bengals if they were 0-2. I wonder the fact that they're 2-0, that Zach Taylor, I think back to Mike Holmgren pulling Brett Favre to the sideline and which was captured on NFL films. And he's kind of giving him the lay of the land, the X's and O's. And then he goes, and please, no more rocket balls. All right. Because like you got to rein these guys in at some point.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Zach Taylor's having that conversation with Jake Browning. Like, look, I know what you're capable of. I know what you did in 2023. It was awesome, but you got to stop with these picks. In a win against the Jaguars, he still threw 3 picks and he didn't play the full game. So that's something that he'll have to rein in. But I do like his ability to pump the ball down the field, especially when you have weapons like Chase and Higgins. That should be a lot of fun. So hopefully that helps, OG. The next question will be a running back one, and this is another fascinating one this week because Aaron Jones gets placed on IR. It's going to be the Jordan Mason show for at least 4 weeks in Minnesota, again with a backup quarterback in Carson Wentz this week, with J.J. McCarthy also being out 2 to 4 weeks. If you can only play one, would you start Jordan Mason this week for the Minnesota Vikings as he takes on the Cincinnati Bengals, right? I have that right? Bengals and yep. Vikings. So would you play Mason at home against the Bengals, or would you play Javonte Williams, the resurgent Javonte Williams, in a high total game as they are favorites in Chicago? Who's it going to be, Mason or Williams this week for you, Tank?
I'm gonna go Javonte Williams against my better judgment. I wanted to say Jordan Mason, but you look at the numbers. Williams has had consistent work. He's gotten 15 carries week 1, 18 week 2, right around a 75% snap share both weeks. He scored both weeks. He's seeing targets. Versus Jordan Mason, like, we want to love the guy. 15 carries the first week, 1 target. Last week he only had 9 for 30 and 3 targets. He only put out 5 fantasy points. Even with Aaron Jones out, we still have Carson Wentz at quarterback. We're not 100% sure what we see out of this offense. I think Javonte Williams can keep this going in Dallas, and this should be a high-scoring game, so I'm going with Javonte.
The Vikings-Bengals game will feature 2 backup quarterbacks. That's a lot of unknowns for me. We're already living in the land of unknowns in week 3 of the NFL season. I don't need more variables thrown into the equation. Here's what I see in the Cowboys-Bears game. 2 defenses that are really struggling right now. They're trying to find themselves. The total on this is 50.5. Javonte Williams looks like one of the best weapons Dallas has right now. For what it's worth, I can't believe it, but it's the case. It's the new reality. So I think for me, as much as, and I will be playing Jordan Mason in a lot of my leagues this week, but at the same time, if I have the choice between Mason and Williams, I just feel more comfy about Javonte Williams this week than I do Jordan Mason. The Bills are moving once again here down the field. It was a James Cook 9-yard run. We had an Elijah Moore rush for 11 yards. Dalton Kincaid with another catch. Good on you, DK. 12-yard catch, and now it's Ty Johnson with a rush down to the Miami 27. The Bills have called timeout. No, I beg your pardon. It's the end of the first quarter there. Bills have it 2nd and 6 from the Miami 27, 7-7 as we move into the second quarter this evening. James Conner ended up ceding a lot of work to Trey Benson this past week. Conner, who is an aging running back, certainly his best football is behind him. I think you were hoping if you drafted James Conner to squeeze one more a year out of him. And not necessarily because of what he's doing, but because of what Trey Benson is doing, we may not get that full illustrious year for Conner where he ends up paying off at his ADP. This week, the Cardinals get the San Francisco 49ers. And the other guy I want to talk about here is Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren, a player that has already been mentioned. I think it was Mike DeFabo who covers the Steelers. I want to say for The Athletic, don't quote me on that. But he said the offense for Pittsburgh would be significantly better if, and I'm paraphrasing here, if Jaylen Warren was getting thrown to more. Broderick Jones, the left tackle or maybe right tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers, has said, yeah, Jaylen Warren's awesome. Again, I'm paraphrasing, and he needs to be involved more. Aaron Rodgers said the same thing about his performance, what he was able to do catching the ball in week 2. Rodgers said, maybe we need to throw him the ball more. So that's 3 people that are very connected to the Steelers offense and the Steelers team that are saying Jaylen Warren needs more action in the passing game. Knowing that, Nate, what are you doing this week if you have to make the decision between James Conner or Jaylen Warren?
I'm going with Jaylen Warren. The loss of passing volume to James Conner that Trey Benson has picked up, the 6 targets last week. That's volume that usually used to go to James Conner. That's a big reason why we loved him in fantasy. He was a PPR darling. He was just one of those phenomenal pass-catching backs out of Pittsburgh, of course. Now, Jaylen Warren is becoming that guy. He had the 4 targets last week, 86 yards. But then when you hear the rest of the offense saying we need to get this guy involved, and your quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, is saying we need to get this guy more involved, they're going to start getting him more involved. And especially Caleb Johnson's in the doghouse, so he's not even a factor right now. Mm-hmm. 3 snaps the last 2 weeks. So that's not an issue. Jaylen Warren to the moon this week. I'm starting him. Not even close.
Yeah, it is close for me. But I will say I'm with you on a lot of this. I just think that the trend right now, or the way that both of these guys are trending, I think that they're kind of meeting in the middle, right? Like Jaylen Warren's going up a little bit, and I guess James Conner, I had it backwards, so it'd be like this, right? Kind of where they're coming from, and Connor's on his way down, Jaylen Warren's on the way up. Now that may change for week 4, week 5, and beyond, but right now, when you have to make your week 3 decisions, I think Jaylen Warren is the smarter play this week over James Conner. Shifting over to tight end here, I know we talked about Harold Fannin earlier. We did not talk about his teammate in real life, David Njoku, who is still a borderline top 10 tight end, even in this situation where they're seemingly splitting the routes run, the targets, the snaps, everything like that. You have them at home against the Green Bay Packers in a game that they might have to throw a lot. And then Dallas Goedert, who's actually coming back from injury. I have to look it up. In fact, I'm going to look it up right now. I think he returned to practice yesterday. So I'm assuming he actually practiced again today. But this was a guy when Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown were doing nothing in the opening game of the season against Dallas. Goddard was seeing 7 catches, something like that.
7,
yep. 7 catches. Now, he is still dealing with this knee injury, and he was limited again today. So clearly, there's something there, whether they're trying to monitor this or give him some rest, keep him fresh for Sunday. I still think he's in the conversation here. That could be a big-time blow-up game between the Rams and Eagles. Maybe it turns into a shootout. I don't know. Totals at 44.5. The Eagles are 3.5-point favorites here. If you had a choice, and I think both of these guys, their ceilings are similar, but right now we have to look at their floors here too. Goddard coming off the injury. The Eagles might not be throwing much. And then David Njoku, who quite frankly has taken a backseat, at least fantasy-wise, to Harold Fannin the first 2 weeks. If you're only playing one of these guys, who's it going to be in week 3? Is it Goddard or is it Njoku for you, Nate?
So I'm going to take a stab on Njoku. Goddard coming back from injury concerns me. We've seen this team move to such a run-heavy script. That concerns me, despite the 7 targets and 7 catches in week 1. Coming off of an injury, I don't know that we're going to see that kind of volume from him. And Njoku, the way I feel about it with Cleveland between Njoku and Fannin is they play two different positions almost. Njoku's more of a traditional tight end. He's going to be in line more often. He's going to be out there on more running plays, running script plays, play action. Fannin's a guy you want to either line up in the X or in the slot. Two completely different things. I don't think they affect each other as much as people think they do. And Njoku's still seen, I mean, he still saw enough volume the last 2 weeks to be fantasy relevant, 6 targets and 5 targets. Not the fantasy output you want, but he's still tight end 18 right now. I think he does make that creep up. And this is a good week where I think that we'll see some volume for Njoku. Green Bay's a tough defense. He's an easy target for Joe Flacco. So I'm going to go Njoku over Goddard this week.
It was almost a second touchdown on the night for Dalton Kincaid as Josh Allen hit him along the right sideline deep. Great play by the Miami corner to knock the ball out of Kincaid's hands. It looked like he was holding it, and that would have been touchdown number 2 on the night. As a result, it's incomplete. Khalil Shakir catches a 9-yard pass down to the Miami 9-yard line. Keon Coleman then catches a pass down to the Miami 5 for 4 yards, and the Bills have called timeout. 12 minutes to go in the second quarter. They are knocking on the door, 1st and goal from the Miami 5. We press on here live on the FFPC Insider Access show, sticking with the tight end theme. TJ Hawkinson, Face has been on a milk carton for these last 2 weeks, and now he gets Carson Wentz throwing to him. I certainly can't think that that's a downgrade given what he's been able to do or not been able to do with J.J. McCarthy. So maybe there's an upgrade for him this week. And then Kyle Pitts, who's back in the top 10 tight ends by most websites right now as far as week 3 goes, got off to an early start in week 2, kind of fell off a little bit. But certainly these two players, you could look at them having a significant week 3 role again. And if you can only play one of them, is it going to be Hawkinson or is it going to be Pitts for you, Tank?
Oh, it's going to be Kyle Pitts. We get Carson Wentz in Minnesota. This offense has already been rough. I don't know that there's enough volume with Wentz for Hawkinson to be fantasy relevant whatsoever. As much as I would love to roll him out, I'm going to have to go with Kyle Pitts. He is resurgent. He's tight end 11 in PPR right now. All of us Kyle Pitts truthers are kind of getting excited. Oh, maybe it's going to happen. So I'm going Kyle Pitts this week.
Speaking of tight ends, it was a tight end that gets in the end zone for the Bills here as their second touchdown has been posted on the board. It was not Dalton Kincaid. It was not even Dawson Knox. It was something called a Jackson Hawes. Jackson Hawes now with 1 catch, 5 yards, and a touchdown as he catches it from Josh Allen here on a little shovel pass from Allen. Good job by Hawes to snare that in the end zone. The Matt Prater extra point is good. 11:54 to go in the second quarter. The Bills have now taken a 14-7 lead. Have at it, Hawes, as Dominic Gazzetti is putting on here tonight. Dennis Rodriguez thought Josh Allen was over the line of scrimmage. I'm going to watch the replay on this here too. I didn't think he was, but he did make it close as the Bills have now scored 14 unanswered. The ball was there. He was well behind the line here. He's about 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage on that play. So Jackson Hawes, did not think we'd be talking about him here tonight, Tank, and yet here we are. Jackson Hawes in the end zone for the Buffalo Bills. One final question here for you tonight from the quarterback realm. This is a fun one, especially maybe not if Jaden Daniels plays. But you look at this matchup, the quarterback 2 in fantasy right now is one Daniel Jones, who plays at 1:00 in Nashville against the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. Meanwhile, the Commanders also kick off at 1:00 at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. Maybe this just comes down to whether Jaden Daniels is active. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe this decision is more nuanced than that. But assuming you do have to make the decision, if Daniels is active, do you automatically play him over Daniel Jones? Or would you sneak Daniel Jones in there in a game against the Titans where they are 4.5-point favorites on the road?
Oh, boy. You didn't think starting the season this would be a question, and this is a legitimate question, and this is a legitimate thing people are having to deal with. I'm still rolling out Jaden Daniels. He's my QB1. I'm heavily invested in the guy, and he's talented, and we know what his ceiling is. We think we know what Daniel Jones' ceiling is. We think we've just seen a new ceiling invented for him this year, but we don't know if that's his ceiling every week. this could be a complete and total aberration. I mean, look at what we saw the Saints do last year the first 4 weeks. They looked like the best team in the NFC, and now, yeah, things could change. I'm not willing to yet. I'm not buying into Daniel Jones enough yet to start him over Jaden Daniels. I can't do it.
I would be sick, absolutely sick, if I made the decision to start Daniel Jones over Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels has like maybe 11 yards rushing, maybe like 6 yards rushing, but he throws for 280 and 3 touchdowns against the Las Vegas Raiders. And Daniel Jones goes back to, Daniel Jones things where he throws for a touchdown, 2 picks, 130 yards, and has like 10 yards. Yeah, like I'd be sick about that. And I know this is probably not always the best way to look at it, but sometimes these start-sit decisions, I look at who I'd be more ticked off if I benched. And I'd be a lot more ticked off if I benched Jaden Daniels and he went off than I would if I benched Daniel Jones and he went off. So I'm with you on this. I am a weak man. I can't do it. It's Jaden Daniels for me, assuming they're both. And by the way, if Daniels is not active, Daniel Jones is probably a top 12, top 10 play this week for sure.
Yep.
I want to ask you one more time where we can find more about Nate Polvogt and everything that you're putting out. OptimusFantasy.com, at Optimus Fantasy on X, at Nate Polvogt on X. You have the DFS show tomorrow live at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Optimus Fantasy is where to go for that, or is it a YouTube channel?
Yes, YouTube channel. Head on over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe while you're there. We'd love that. And then we have a Friday Vibes Q&A show tomorrow night. It's at 6 p.m. Eastern as well. That will be live with myself, Kevin Tompkins, and Keith Fleming. And then head over to tools.optimusfantasy.com. Give it a look. Promo code 3.
Promo code 3 is what you want to do. And that's going to give you what? Discounted for 3 months access?
$10 off for the first 3 months. Come over and check it out.
OptimusFantasy.com, tools.optimusfantasy.com as well. The FFPC Weekly Challenge is live. No draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 players. Win up to $2,500. 10, 30, and 100-team contest. 1 player per NFL team. That's at myffpc.com. We'll be back at 7 o'clock next Thursday night. Establish the runs. Jack Miller will rejoin us for the Seahawks and Cardinals game. I want to shout out our producer, Matt Deutsch, tonight. And thank you, Nate Polvogt. We will do this again very soon.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. For Matt Deutsch, for Nate Polvogt, I've been Eric Balkman. This is FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. Enjoy the rest of the game, everybody. Talk with you next week.